Chapter 3588. I have to work for at least 3 months? Lin, he was slightly stunned. Not only him, but the rookies beside him who had heard the conversation between the two also had a change in expression. Following that, they began to whisper worriedly. 3 months was neither long nor short. For cultivators with long lifespans, even if 3 months passed in vain without any harvest, it was not a big deal. But for the rookies present, the meaning of these 3 months was completely different. Don't forget, if they want to enter the Blue Cloud Pavilion, they must succeed in building their foundation within a year. And 3 months is already a quarter of a year. Once they signed the contract, it meant that in the next 3 months, compared to newcomers like Xiao Ran who had never come to mine, their cultivation progress would inevitably be slower. After all, even if the spiritual energy in the Spirit Jade mine was naturally rich, they would not be able to focus on cultivation, and the effect would inevitably be greatly reduced. But then again, if they could earn enough spiritual jades in these 3 months, they wouldn't suffer a loss, because this would lay a solid foundation for their cultivation in the next 9 months. At that time, their cultivation would be much better than that of Xiao Ran and the others. It was entirely possible for them to catch up. As long as they succeeded in building their foundation, they would be the victors. In the end, signing this mining contract was a gamble. If he could gather enough spiritual jades in the next 3 months, he would win. If the number of spirit jades collected was too little, or even if there was no harvest at all, then it would be a loss, and a huge loss at that. However, if the other rookies could be said to have some wins and losses in this gamble, then for Lin Yi, who was about to be assigned to mine number 10, it was a different story. He would lose without a doubt. In these 3 months, as long as the others were a little more diligent, they would be able to make it. If he was lucky, he might be able to earn 7 or 8 pieces of spiritual jades. Even if he was unlucky, he could earn at least 4 or 5 pieces. However, in mining area number 10, a notoriously dead mining area, after 3 months, Lin Yi might not even be able to earn a single piece of spiritual jade. In fact, according to past experiences, not to mention good jades full of spiritual qi, even waste jades with thin spiritual qi were scarce in the number 10 dead mining area. If one wanted to collect 100 pieces of good jades in this kind of place to exchange for rewards, it would be extremely difficult. This was simply a fool's dream. If it was anyone else who heard of this situation, they would definitely wisely choose to retreat at this moment. It was better to be a coward that ran away at the last moment than to waste 3 months of precious cultivation time for nothing. If they still braced themselves and continued to fight at this moment, then there was simply something wrong with their brains. However, Lin Yi had no intention of backing down. He didn't come here for the reward of mining. Since there were very few spirit jades in the 10th dead mine, it was likely that the supervision there would not be as strict as the other mines. Instead, it would be easier for him to tamper with it. In other words, what Lin Yi wanted now was waste jade. If he really traded it for a good mining area with a high yield of spirit jade, he would be closely monitored. That would be troublesome. However, it was obviously impossible for Senior Brother Bitter Guy to know Lin Yi's plan. Seeing that Lin Yi had a relaxed expression from beginning to end, he couldn't help but anxiously stomp his feet again and again. For Lin Yi, who was one of the few junior brothers who respected him from the bottom of his heart, Senior Brother Bitter Guy really didn't want him to suffer losses from the bottom of his heart, especially when it was such an obvious loss. He tried to persuade Lin Yi a few more times, but he couldn't persuade him no matter what. In the end, Senior Brother Bitter Guy gritted his teeth and braced himself to walk towards Meng Jueguang and Dai Wuchang. Seeing Senior Brother Bitter Guy squeezing his way over, Meng Jueguang looked at him in surprise. In the past few years, he was used to seeing Senior Brother Bitter Guy's submissive appearance, but he had never seen such a firm expression on Senior Brother Bitter Guy's face. He even felt a little imposing aura. This meek trash actually has an imposing aura? Meng Jueguang couldn't help but be amused by this strange thought that emerged from the bottom of his heart. He curled his lips and said, Junior Brother Bitter Guy, what are you trying to do? Unexpectedly, Senior Brother Bitter didn't reply as respectfully as usual. He didn't even look at him. Instead, he directly said to Dai Wu Chang, Senior Brother Dai, please give me a copy of the contract of the 7th mining area. Oh, could it be that Junior Brother Bitter Guy also wants to mine jade? Could it be that the rules of the Welcome Pavilion have changed and you, as stewards, can actually accept private work? Dai Wu Chang looked at Senior Brother Bitter Guy strangely. In order to prevent these stewards from neglecting their duties and neglecting their duty of teaching the newcomers, the Welcome Pavilion clearly stipulated that they were not allowed to accept any private work. After all, they already had a high monthly salary, which was enough for their daily cultivation expenses. If it was said that they were only going to the mine to supervise and maintain the order of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, then that was fine. But if they wanted to mine the jade themselves, then that was not allowed. No, I am asking for this contract for Junior Brother Lin. According to the rules, any steward has the authority to arrange contracts for the newcomers. There shouldn't be any problem with me doing this, right? Under the intense gaze of Meng Jueguang, Senior Brother Bitter Guy finally braced himself and said this. This was the first time in several years that he publicly disobeyed Meng Jueguang's intentions. Oh, that's true, but Dai Wu Chang was stunned, then turned to look at the gloomy expression of Meng Jueguang. Although in theory Senior Brother Bitter Guy did have this authority, it had always been Meng Jueguang who had the final say all these years. How could Senior Brother Bitter Guy have the right to speak? As for Lin Yi's arrangement, I have already decided just now. The contract for the 10th mine is prepared for him. Junior Brother Bitter Guy, you don't have to do anything unnecessary. Meng Jueguang looked coldly at Senior Brother Bitter Guy and said, although he was extremely annoyed, no matter what, the other party was still a steward at the same level as him. He could not directly flip out like he did with the newcomers. The 10th mine is publicly recognized as a dead mine. As the steward of the Welcome Pavilion, I have to be responsible for the cultivation of the newcomers. I think this is not good for Junior Brother Lin's future cultivation. Senior Brother Bitter Guy stuttered. In the face of Meng Jueguang's years of accumulated power, Senior Brother Bitter Guy still felt a little weak in his heart, and even his words were not fluent. Meng Jueguang bitterly gritted his teeth. Although he wanted to beat this 10,000-year-old coward up, with so many people watching, he could only suppress his anger in the bottom of his heart. After all, Senior Brother Bitter Guy's words were not without reason. At this time, let alone making a move, even if he said half a word wrong, it would be spread out that he was deliberately suppressing the newcomers. This was a very fatal stain for the steward. Chapter 3589. Senior Marshal Brother couldn't help but choke. He didn't expect that Meng Jueguang didn't refute, but Dai Wu Chang took the initiative to attack first. Little did he know that this Dai Wu Chang and Meng Jueguang were basically in the same boat. Seeing that Senior Marshal Brother was at a loss, Dai Wu Chang continued to say with a cold face, just because you have a good relationship with a newcomer, you want to arrange a good mining area for him. Does this Spirit Jade Hall belong to your family? This Senior Marshal Brother Ku Bai was speechless. However, Dai Wu Chang continued to say, Junior Marshal Brother, don't think that just because I came from Blue Cloud Pavilion, I can be unscrupulously partial to our own people from Blue Cloud Pavilion. On the contrary, in order to not let the people from the other 2 pavilions fall behind, I have to be stricter to my own people. This matter concerns the reputation and image of the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion. Don't blame me for not giving you face. These words were spoken righteously, and even dragged out the reputation and image of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Senior Marshal Brother was suddenly speechless. He was not a person who was good at talking. This time, he had already mustered up the courage to oppose. After being suddenly reprimanded by Dai Wu Chang, he suddenly didn't know what to say. Meng Jueguang looked at this scene with a face of contempt and complacency. A coward was a coward. Since he was a salted fish, he would never be able to make a comeback. Since Senior Marshal Brother Dai has said this, then as one of us, we can't make things difficult for him for our own selfish interests, right? Meng Jueguang pretended to be open-minded as he turned to Lin Yi with a cold smile. Lin Yi, I'll say it up front. The 10th mine's contract is yours, and if you're thinking of backing out like a coward, you'll have to face the consequences. If you want to retreat like a tortoise, then I won't blame you. After all, take a step back and you can see the world. This is Junior Marshal Brother Dai's mantra. You have followed him for a few days. I think you can learn a little essence. Ha ha ha. Everyone chimed in and roared with laughter. In any case, it was Lin Yi who was thrown into the number 10 dead mine. Since it had nothing to do with him, of course they were happy to see such a lively scene. In fact, the rookies were quite dissatisfied with being assigned to the 8th mine and not the better 7th mine. However, they did not dare to challenge Meng Jueguang. Therefore, he could only seek psychological comfort from Lin Yi, who was even more miserable. Being ridiculed in public like this, the bitter senior apprentice's face suddenly turned red, but the words he said just now had already exhausted all his courage. At this time, he simply did not dare to speak again. He could only look at Lin Yi, hoping that Lin Yi would be a wise man and not fight when the odds were against him, and quickly leave with him. However, Lin Yi just smiled. He looked calmly at the proud and arrogant Meng Jueguang and said lightly, "At least I can learn something by following Senior Apprentice Brother Dai. But if I follow Senior Apprentice Brother Meng, not only will I not learn anything, I might even go for wool and come home shorn. It seems that it is better to follow Senior Apprentice Brother Dai. Go for wool and come home shorn." Meng Jueguang's face suddenly changed. Lin Yi's words had poked at his sore spot. At this time, he was still feeling the pain of taking out the 2 pieces of spiritual jades yesterday. He looked at Lin Yi suspiciously, not knowing whether Lin Yi said those words unintentionally or deliberately poked at his sore spot. Of course, even if he knew that Lin Yi was deliberately poking at his sore spot, Meng Jueguang at most thought that Lin Yi had seen through the framing scheme yesterday, but he did not expect that the 2 pieces of spiritual jades were actually hidden in the space of the jade pendant. Lin Yi did not continue to pay attention to him. He turned to Senior Apprentice Brother Dai and said, "Senior Apprentice Brother Dai, you don't have to worry about me. I know what I'm doing." As he said that, Lin Yi strode over to take the number 10 mining area contract from Dai Wuchang and signed his name directly. Sigh. Senior Apprentice Brother Dai shook his head helplessly, but it was too late to stop it now. He could only think of a way in the future to see how to make Lin Yi suffer less in the mining area. "Humph, you are indeed the strongest newcomer. You really have courage." Although Meng Jueguang praised him, his eyes were full of schadenfreude. If Lin Yi was a coward at this time, then even if he was the Senior Apprentice Brother Dai Wuchang, he could only take advantage of Lin Yi verbally, but he could not really make Lin Yi suffer. But now Lin Yi actually signed the contract without saying anything. Then he would have to suffer in the future. Even an unlucky bastard like Lin Yi, who'd been sent to the 10th mine, dared to sign the contract. The other newbies wouldn't back down either. 3 months it was. They'd just have to put in a little more effort, and there'd still be some profit. After everyone signed the contract, they were each given a jade card. The material should be the worst quality of waste jade, and it was marked with a number. The others were number 7 and 8, but the one in Lin Yi's hand was number 10. The one in your hand is the pass token. The number marked on it will allow you to enter the mining area. Other mining areas are not allowed to enter. After Dai Wuchang explained to everyone, he then sat back in his seat. It was unknown what mechanism was pressed, but the huge iron door in front of everyone automatically opened. "All right, since you all have the pass token, then follow me in," Meng Jueguang said, and led the way into the door. Everyone looked at each other and then followed. Behind the door was not the mining area that they had imagined, but a huge compartment. In the compartment, in addition to 4 uniformed guards, there were also 4 staff members who were responsible for searching the disciples entering and leaving. These staff members had all been specially trained. They did not let go of any possible corner from top to bottom. They were extremely professional. In front of such a strict body search, any attempt to hide the spirit jades would be courting death. There was no possibility of getting away with it. However, Lin Yi noticed that these staff members seemed to be very familiar with Meng Jueguang. When they searched the new disciples, they searched them carefully, but when it came to Meng Jueguang, they just pretended to go through the motions. In addition, Dai Wu Chang was clearly helping Meng Jueguang to suppress the poor guy. It seemed that this steward's senior brother seemed to be very popular in this place. After the search, they passed through the compartment and officially entered the spiritual jade mine. It was deep and spacious. The distance between their feet and the top of the mine was about 4 or 5 feet. It was not a simple and small mine as they had imagined. It was obviously a huge mine that had been carefully reinforced and designed. Bright, fluorite stones of various sizes were inlaid in every corner of the top of the mine. At first glance, it did not look like a mine, but more like a mysterious underground world, which was pleasing to the eye. Chapter 3590. Every mine entrance was guarded by an expert, marked with numbers 1 to 10. Needless to say, these 10 mines led to their respective mining areas. Only after showing the corresponding pass token could one enter. Meng Jueguang led Meng Tong and Li Zhengming into the 7th mine. The other new disciples entered the 8th mine. As for Lin Yi, he entered the 10th mine accompanied by Senior Brother Ku Bai. Senior Brother Ku, don't you need a special pass token to come in? Lin Yi turned his head and looked at Senior Brother Ku Bai in surprise. When he came in just now, he clearly saw that Senior Brother Ku Bai only showed the guard his jade token as the welcoming pavilion steward. The same was true for Meng Jueguang on the other side. Yes, the identity card of the welcoming pavilion steward is also valid here. However, because I'm from Blue Cloud Pavilion, I can only enter the 7th, 8th, and 9th mine. Of course, the 10th mine is a public mine, so you can come and go as you please. Senior Brother Ku Bai nodded. After a pause, he immediately complained. Junior Brother Lin, you really shouldn't have signed this contract just now. I've come to the 10th mine before and couldn't dig out any good jade at all. However, there's no other way. I'll take you to the places where I've dug up some spirit jades. Although I can only dig up some useless jades, it's still better than blindly doing useless work like a headless fly. Thank you, Senior Brother Ku. Lin Yi responded with a smile. Although he was now in the early stage of foundation establishment and did not have as much time pressure as other new disciples, 3 months was not a short time. If he really could not dig out anything at all, it would be a pure waste of time. However, it was enough to dig out useless jade. The mine was winding and long. According to Senior Brother Ku Bai, the 10th mine was already a very remote location. The two of them walked for more than an hour before reaching their destination. Along the way, although they occasionally saw a few people, they could be counted on one hand. Even when they arrived at the real mining site, there were only 2 or 3 people in such a large mining area, 2 of whom were guards in uniform. The name of the 10th dead mining area was indeed well-deserved. Seeing Lin Yi and the other man, the 2 bored guards looked at each other and jokingly said, "Ha! Another 2 unlucky bastards." Even the trash from Blue Cloud Pavilion wouldn't be willing to come to a dead mine like this. They must be the unlucky ones who had offended the higher-ups. As the guards here, they were already used to this kind of thing. Ku Bai's face immediately darkened. He was actually treated as an unlucky ghost by the guards. Just look at how Meng Jueguang was enjoying himself. Wherever he went, there would be acquaintances. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang was suffering. That was really a real hardship. I'm Senior Brother Ku Zhongla, the manager of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's welcoming pavilion. I'm here to escort the disciples into the mining area. Senior brother Kubai said. Happiness from hardship? The two guards were obviously stunned. I've never heard of it. Are you the steward senior brother? Wasn't senior steward Meng Jueguang and bitter? How could there be bitterness and happiness? I'm Kubai. Kubai is my nickname, and Kuzhong Lu is my original name. Kubai explained with a wry smile. Dizzy. If I had told you earlier, you would have been fine. The guard nodded and waved his hand. He gestured for the bitter guy to enter. After greeting the two guards with a nod, he took Lin Yi to the mining site that he was familiar with. But before he could take 2 steps, he heard the two guards talking behind him. So he is a bitter bastard. Now that I've seen him today, he is indeed a bitter bastard. Yeah, but I feel that the one beside him is the one who is suffering. He followed the wrong person. If he followed Meng Jueguang, how could he be here? Sai, that can't be helped. Actually, aren't we the same? If he hadn't offended Dai Wuchang, a figure with real power in Spirit Jade Hall, how could he have been sent here? Lin Yi also heard the previous conversation. It turned out that Kubai's name was Kuzhong Lu, but obviously he himself had tacitly agreed to the name of Kubai so that when he officially registered, no one knew him. The two walked into the mining area, put down the basket that was specially written with their names at the door, and took out the shovel inside. Kubai's senior brother personally demonstrated and guided Lin Yi on some of the tricks of mining. What was worth mentioning was that in order to prevent the heaven and earth spiritual qi from being damaged during mining, the shovels used for mining were made entirely of jade. However, they were similar to other shovels made of iron. Hard, sharp, and very practical. Not only could it easily break the soil, but it could even easily penetrate hard stones. Lin even felt that this thing was more than enough to be used as a weapon. After mastering the tricks of Kubai's guidance, Lin Yi quickly got used to it. After all, this thing itself was not complicated, and it mainly depended on strength. And with Lin Yi's strength in the early stage of foundation establishment, this kind of strength work was naturally not a problem. Even if he worked non-stop for a whole day, he would not feel tired at all. Although this was the number 10 dead mining area, the jade production rate was extremely low. But Lin Yi now chose this point, after all, with the experience of Kubai's senior brother, and his luck was good today. Just a moment later, he dug out the first piece of spirit jade. Wiping the soil on the surface with a cloth, the white jade quickly bloomed with brilliance. The appearance looked exactly the same as the few pieces of spirit jade in his hand. But after carefully feeling the spiritual energy in it, he found that it was very thin, the concentration was less than 1%. It was a typical piece of waste jade. It's okay if you save up a lot of this kind of waste jade. You can also exchange it for good jade. Kubai's senior brother comforted on the side. Lin Yi nodded, and then he saw one of the two guards in the distance come over, carrying a pair of scales with him. After taking out the waste jade that Lin Yi dug out, weighing it and recording the number, he threw the waste jade back into the basket, turned around, and left. What is he doing? Lin Yi wondered. This is the same monitoring process in all mining areas. In order to prevent people from secretly hiding spirit jade, every time someone dug out a spirit jade, the guard will weigh it and record the number. When it is time to finish work, all the spirit jade that you have collected will be weighed again. If the number is too different from the number provided by the guard, especially if it is a lot less, you will be isolated for investigation. Kubai's senior brother explained. Chapter 3591. If it's a good jade full of spiritual energy, it's understandable that the inspection is so strict, but is it the same for waste jade? Lin Yi's heart was moved. The bitter senior nodded. It's the same. Whether it's a good jade or a waste jade, the process is the same. Only before it enters the warehouse, there will be specialized personnel to distinguish the quality, sort out the good jade and waste jade, and record the corresponding quantity as the basis for future payment. This is a bit tricky. According to Lin Yi's original idea, stealing a few pieces of waste jade should be a simple matter. But in this way, even if he only stole a piece of waste jade, it was very likely to be discovered. After all, once the spirit jade was dug out, the guards would come over on the spot to weigh it and record the data. At the end, when the work was handed over, it had to be weighed again. If the number of spirit jades collected every day was not much, even if he only secretly hid a piece, there would be a big discrepancy between the two numbers. Or could he hide the spirit jade in the space of the jade pendant the moment he dug it out, and then pretend that he didn't dig it out? This idea naturally came to Lin Yi, but after quietly looking back to observe the two guards, he quickly gave up the idea. There was no other reason other than the fact that there weren't many people who came here to collect jade, and the two guards were bored to death. They'd look over at Lin Yi from time to time, and there was a huge difference between when the jade was dug up and when the jade wasn't dug up, and the process wasn't long either. Lin Yi might not even have the time to dig up the jade, and the two guards would already be behind him, waiting to weigh the jade. There was no way he could escape their surveillance. But in this way, if he couldn't make a move before the spirit jade was weighed by the guards, then it would be even more impossible after that. For a time, he even felt that he'd made a mistake coming here. If he couldn't think of a surefire way to steal the hidden jade, then the next 3 months would be a complete waste of time. It would be a waste of practice time. While thinking of various possible methods, he continued to mine. However, Lin Yi's luck was really good today. In just a short time, he dug out another piece of spirit jade. It seems that this junior's luck is not bad, although the weight felt much lighter than ordinary good jade. However, it's still a bit heavier than the first piece. It can be seen that even if it's a waste jade, it's still a good piece of waste jade. The guard who came over to weigh the jade sighed with a smile. Originally, according to the rules of Spirit Jade Hall, guards were not allowed to chat with outsiders under normal circumstances. However, the work in the 10th mining area was really boring. Even if they casually chatted to relieve boredom, their colleagues would only turn a blind eye to it. The weight of good jade will be heavier. Hearing the guard's words, Yi Zichen nodded. An idea suddenly flashed in Lin Yi's mind. He turned his head and asked the bitter senior brother, "That's right, junior brother Lin. Don't you know that even if they are the same size, a good jade full of spiritual qi will be much heavier than a waste jade with thin spiritual qi?" The bitter senior brother nodded. "I see." Lin Yi breathed out in relief. If that was the case, then. If this was the case, even in the face of the strict supervision process of Spirit Jade Hall, there might be loopholes to exploit. Bitter senior brother, I have a basic understanding of the situation here. You don't have to continue to follow me and waste time here. You'd better go and do your own things. Lin Yi turned his head and said to the bitter senior brother, All right, then I'll go first." The bitter senior brother nodded. He specifically came over today because he was afraid that Lin Yi would suffer a loss, but now things had come to this. It was not a solution to continue to waste time here. It was better to go back and think of ways to see how to help Lin Yi. Watching the bitter senior brother leave, the idea in Lin Yi's mind had gradually taken shape at this moment, and the most crucial point was the weight of the spirit jade. The spirit jade, full of spiritual qi, was heavy, and the spirit jade within spiritual qi was light. This was the key point that Lin Yi was going to use to make a fuss. Although the two guards would look at this side from time to time, they did not always pay attention to the situation here. According to Lin Yi's idea, he could pick up the weighed waste jade from the basket beside him when the guards were not paying attention and put it into his jade pendant space. After charging it, he could quietly put it back. In this way, if there were a few more pieces, the extra weight after charging should be enough to equal a piece of spirit jade. At that time, even if he secretly hid a piece, there would not be much difference in the weight after handing it over to the workers. In this way, he could get away with it. After thinking about it, the only loophole in this idea was that when the quality was finally divided in the reservoir area, there would be a lot of good jade among the spirit jades that Lin Yi handed over. This would not be a problem in other high-quality mining areas, but in this dead mining area number 10, it was a bit conspicuous. But then again, this was not a big problem. No matter how conspicuous it was, people would at most say that Lin Yi was lucky, and absolutely no one would think that Lin Yi had secretly charged the waste jade into good jade and put it back. After all, in the logic of normal people, handing over their own good jade as mined jade was simply crazy. If the good jade was not mined on the spot, but originally had, then what was the point of handing it over? He could just keep it for himself. Why did he have to count it as the result of mining and expect a reward of 100 yuan for one piece? His brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Moreover, entering and exiting the mining area required a body search. Even if Lin Yi wanted to bring the spirit jades in, it was impossible. After the plan was decided, Lin Yi immediately put it into action. After digging continuously for 4 hours without rest in his basket, other than those that looked like waste jade at a glance, there were already 18 pieces of the appearance of waste spirit jades in various sizes. This might not be considered much in other high-yield mining areas, but this was the dead mining area number 10. To have such a result was quite good. Even the guards who came to weigh it were amazed. Of course, according to the usual behavior of the 10th mining area, although these 18 pieces of spirit jades looked impressive, in fact, they should be 100% waste jade, so there was no need to be envious of them. It seemed that Lin Yi had been mining, but in the process of working, he secretly used the space in the jade pendant to store the 8 pieces of waste spirit jades that looked like spirit jades in the basket. Because the spirit jades were taken out from the middle of the basket, they still looked the same without much change, and the guards from afar could not see anything strange if they did not look carefully. Chapter 3592. According to the difference between the previous and the subsequent measurements, he found that these 8 fully filled spiritual jades weighed more than 10 pieces of waste jades. This meant that under the premise that the weight was not too different, he could secretly hide 2 pieces of spiritual jades. Although the 2 pieces of spiritual jades were useless, they were truly good jades in Lin Yi's hands. Hiding 2 pieces a day might not seem like much, but if he could continue doing it smoothly, it would definitely be a considerable amount of wealth. Moreover, Lin Yi didn't touch the jade that looked good on the outside. Instead, he only touched the jade that looked like it was useless on the outside. It was the kind that only had a trace of energy in it. If this little bit of energy was used up, the jade would immediately shatter. Perhaps the guards wouldn't deliberately count the quantity of this kind of jade, but they would definitely have an impression of those that looked like good jade. If Lin Yi really touched it, it would be very easy for problems to arise. However, whether he could move or not, he still had to test it out. If they really had a strict requirement for quantity, then Lin Yi could only return the stolen spiritual jades. As for why the weight of the jade increased, the guards probably wouldn't suspect it. After all, no one would be stupid enough to count their own jade. They would only think that they had remembered wrongly. But if it was feasible, think about it. Lin Yi would be working here for 3 months in the future. Even if the ranking competition and the rookie trial were excluded, that would be at least 70 days. If he hid 2 pieces a day, that would be 140. One had to know that the Welcome Pavilion only gave out a piece of spirit jade to the newcomers every month. What kind of concept was 140? This was simply turning the tables and becoming a local tycoon. Even for a senior like Meng Jueguang, who was a senior steward, he could not do anything about it. He definitely didn't have so many spiritual jades. For consumables like spiritual jades, which could be used for cultivation and trade, it would be considered good if Meng Jueguang could save 30 to 50 spiritual jades, let alone 140 spiritual jades. Otherwise, he would not have lost 2 spiritual jades for so long. In this way, as long as Lin Yi had enough spiritual jades on hand, not to mention buying medicinal ingredients for alchemy, even if he wanted more precious treasures, it would only take a word from him. After all, this was just like the secular world. The more spiritual jades one had, the stronger one's back would be, and the more confident one would be in doing things. However, all of this beautiful vision was built on the basis that things went smoothly. Although Lin Yi's plan to steal the spiritual jade seemed to be quite comprehensive, if the two guards weighing him were really very careful, they would not be able to do it. That was because he had sensed something fishy. Of course, according to Lin Yi's observation of these two people, the possibility of this happening was not high. Even if there was a risk of being discovered, it was very small. The two of them only took note of the amount of waste jade on the outside of the golden jade. They only used a counter to accumulate the total and did not record the individual weights. After working for a full 12 hours, it should be dark outside. Suddenly, a faint bell sound came from the distance. One of the guards shouted at the top of his lungs. All right. The bell rang and the work was over. That was all for today. Pack up and hand over the work with me. Lin Yi looked around and could not help but laugh. The guard's words were simply directed at him. In such a big mining area, there was no one else except for himself and the two guards. Getting up and patting off the dust on his body, Lin Yi put away the jade shovel, carried the basket, and followed the two guards out of the mining area. Junior brother, you have a good harvest today. TSK, TSK. On your first day here, you can collect more than 42 jin. Although it should be waste jade, it is still very good. One of the guards waved the account book in his hand at Lin Yi. He had been bored to death in this dead mining area for a year. Now that he finally met a new face, he was purely looking for a topic to relieve his boredom. You have mined a lot of jade that looks good. Even if it is waste jade, this kind of jade that looks good can be exchanged for a good spiritual jade after accumulating 10,000 pieces. Speaking of which, you still have hope. 10,000 pieces. If Lin Yi did not have a golden finger, he would be exhausted to death. Lin Yi's sharp eyes took a glance at the guard's account book. At the top of the page was his name, and below it was a series of numbers that looked like good jade. At the bottom, there was a conspicuous number that was specially circled. 42 jin, 3 taels. This was the number that subtracted the weight of the basket. It could be considered as the final accurate record on his side. Sure enough, as Lin Yi had guessed, there was no such thing as the total number of waste jade. There was only the total weight of the jade. For Lin Yi, there were many things that could be manipulated here. It was purely luck. Senior brother, this is my first time here, so I do not know the rules here. Can you tell me what the rules are for handing over the work? Lin Yi saw that the guard was quite amiable, so he tried to open his mouth and ask. To be honest, although Lin Yi did not think that he would give himself away, at this time, he was really facing the last test. His heart was still a little shaky. This was like a student cheating on an exam. Even if the invigilator did not catch them cheating on the spot, after handing in the exam paper, they would still be worried that they did not leave any clues on the paper. For example, copying down the mistakes of others. The guard looked at Lin Yi and thought that it was boring anyway, so he smiled and said, "The handing over process is very simple. You hand over the basket of spirit jade that you dug, and I hand over my account book. There is nothing else for us to do. We just wait on the side and watch. There will be people in the warehouse who will weigh your spirit jade again. As long as the number is not too different from my mark of 42 jin, 3 taels, there will be no problem. Will there be a difference in this?" Lin Yi asked with narrowed eyes. Of course there will be a difference. The same basket of jade will have a difference if different people weigh it, not to mention that the scale in my hand is so simple. It is completely incomparable to the accuracy of the big scale in their warehouse. However, as long as the difference is within 5 taels, it is considered normal. The guard replied. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. Normally, a piece of spirit jade of average size would weigh at least more than 1 jin. If the difference was within 5 taels, it meant that it must be caused by the weighing error, which was enough to rule out the possibility of stealing the spirit jade. Chapter 3593. If the margin of error was 5 taels, then it shouldn't be too big of a problem. Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. As a foundation establishment early-stage expert, his sensitivity to weight was far above ordinary people. According to his estimation, the difference in weight between the 8 pieces of spirit jades filled with spiritual energy and the 10 pieces of waste jades with thin spiritual energy was at most 2 to 3 taels. Then what if the difference is more than 5 taels? What will happen? Lin Yi thought for a while and asked again. Then you will be isolated for inspection, and you will have to strip naked and search your body. The guard chuckled, then looked at Lin Yi mischievously and said, Brother, you are inquiring about this. Could it be that you secretly hid the spirit jades? Senior brother, you must be joking. The body search is so strict. Even if I want to hide it, I can't hide it. If you don't hide it on your body, but in this mine, what's the difference from not hiding it? Anyway, you can't bring it out. Lin Yi smiled. And the 2 guard senior brothers are here, so conscientiously, I also don't have a chance. That's right. Hee, brother, what you said is right. The rules of our Spirit Jade Hall are so strict, ordinary people have no chance to steal the Spirit Jades and bring them out. Especially a newcomer without any foundation like you. Don't even think about it. Only those who have a deep network of connections have a glimmer of chance. TSK, this world. The guard sighed with envy and dissatisfaction. Hearing his words, Lin Yi unconsciously thought of a person, Meng Jueguang. Judging from his previous performance, this guy seemed to be very popular in the Spirit Jade Hall. He should be considered as the guy with a deep network of connections that the guard mentioned. With Meng Jueguang's temperament as a steward senior brother, he might take the risk out of desperation. Lin Yi's heart moved, but this thought was just a flash. The urgent matter was to inquire about the various rules of this Spirit Jade Hall first. He'd managed to get quite a bit of information out of this talkative guards. It might not be all that useful, but he'd at least have an idea of what they'd be facing next. After half an hour, Lin Yi followed the 2 guards out of the 10th mine. To his surprise, Meng Jueguang and his party were standing at the delivery place at the entrance of the warehouse. Mine 10 was the furthest away, and mine 7 and 8 were a lot nearer. It wasn't strange that they'd come back earlier than Lin Yi, but it did make sense that they were still here, waiting for Lin Yi, even though it seemed like they'd already finished their work and waited. But after seeing the gloating expression on everyone's faces, Lin Yi quickly understood the intentions of these guys. Lin Yi, they were waiting here of their own. Yo! Our strongest newcomer finally came out. I thought I couldn't dig up the spirit jades, so I wanted to die of shame and anger. In a rage, I wanted to kill myself in the dead mining area. As soon as he saw Lin Yi appear, Meng Tong immediately jumped out and mocked. Meng Tong, how can you say that? Meng Jueguang pretended to be serious and reprimanded, and then said, Our strongest newcomer was deeply taught by Junior Brother Bitter. Even if he really wanted to die of shame and anger, he would at most hide inside like a turtle. How could he possibly kill himself? Really don't know how to talk. Can't you see that Junior Brother Bitter is still alive and well? What did their faction like to be? That little picture book that someone brought from the secular world. That's right. It's called Ninja Turtle. Oh, right, Ninja Turtle. It's still 9th cousin who has a good eye for people, but this pretentious newcomer is quite thick-skinned. Maybe when he weighs it, he will know what it means to want to die of shame and anger. Meng Tong echoed with a strange smile. The people on the side could not help but laugh. After a tiring day, they could not wait to find a sense of superiority from Lin Yi, who had always been in the limelight. It seems that you don't have an easy time, brother. The guard looked at the scene and shook his head with a smile. He led Lin Yi to the place where the work was handed over. While handing over the account book in his hand to the staff in charge of weighing, he gestured to Lin Yi to pour the spirit jades in the basket onto the platform of a giant scale. Hee, guess how many kilograms of spirit jades our pretentious newcomer has collected today? I'll say 5 kilograms. Meng Tong led the crowd to jeer. The others were immediately amused. They had already weighed it before. Even the smallest among them was at least 20 kilograms. And people like Meng Tong and Li Zhengming, who were assigned to mine number 7, were both above 15 kilograms. This number was considered acceptable for a newcomer who was mining for the first day. Brother Tong, that's not right. No matter what, we are fellow disciples. I feel that there should be at least 2 kilograms. Li Zhengming echoed from the side. I bet 5 kilograms. I bet 4.5 kilograms. While the crowd was jeering, Lin Yi was too lazy to pay attention to them. When he took the basket from his back and poured 30 to 40 pieces of spirit jades on the platform, the group of people instantly fell silent. 42 kilograms and 5 taels. The staff noted down the number. After comparing it with the number on the account book, there was only a difference of 2 taels. He nodded and gestured to Lin Yi to put the spirit jades back into the basket and let him go. No problem. Lin Yi immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Before this, his heart was hanging in suspense. He did not expect to pass so easily. This made him feel relieved, but also a little surprised. But thinking about it carefully, the mining area was so big and there were so many people mining. Using this kind of weight to verify was already rare and harsh. If they had to check in more detail, then the workload would absolutely make everyone in Spirit Jade Hall collapse. What's more, there was a strict body search when entering and exiting the mine. To a large extent, it had put an end to people's attempts to steal the spirit jades. This was just an auxiliary monitoring process. Lin Yi was relieved, but the others present, especially Meng Tong's group, were embarrassed. Looking at the bright red number on the giant scale, they were speechless for a long time. 42 kilograms and 5 taels. What kind of concept was this? This was simply killing all of them. Even Meng Tong, who had received guidance from Meng Jueguang, was only 35 kilograms in the end. This must be cheating. How can a dead mine dig out so many spirit jades? Meng Tong could not help but cry out, cheating? How could this thing cheat? Could it be that they had racked their brains to secretly bring in their own spirit jades and then sneak in and pretend to dig them out themselves to hand over? There must be something wrong with their brains. Chapter 3594. It seems that Ku Bai is really attentive to this rare little brother of yours. Did he help you dig a lot of these spiritual jades? Although Meng Jueguang's face was also a little ugly, he was not as hysterical as Meng Tong. He raised his eyebrows and deduced self-righteously. The others suddenly realized that according to Ku Bai's honest character, it was very possible that he helped Lin Yi dig the spiritual jades in order to make up for it. Since there was a veteran like Ku Bai to help, Lin Yi's 42 caddies and 5 taels was not so exaggerated. The originally disappointed and embarrassed people suddenly felt balanced in their hearts. There were 2 people and they were 1 person. Wasn't it normal for them to have more spiritual jades than them? Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. Although his results were indeed due to Ku Bai's credit, after all, it was Ku Bai who helped him find the mining site and taught him many practical tricks. It was undeniable that these 42 caddies and 5 taels were also the result of Lin Yi's own labor. This was beyond doubt. It didn't matter if it was his senior brother's teaching, or if it was his luck today. The spirit jades were all dug out by himself. There wasn't any cheating involved. If it was really cheating, his results were more than this. After all, he still secretly hid 2 pieces. However, although this was the case, since everyone insisted on thinking so, then Lin Yi was too lazy to talk to them. They could think whatever they wanted about this kind of insignificant things. Since these people wanted to find a psychological balance for themselves, Lin Yi could not stop them, so he simply ignored them. Looking at Lin Yi's calm appearance, everyone suddenly felt unhappy in their hearts. They obviously formed a group to wait here to see Lin Yi make a fool of himself. The result was good. Instead, they seemed to have become clowns and Lin Yi saw them as a joke. In fact, the weight is not the key. If you dig out 20 caddies of spiritual jades in a good mining area, there may be 10 good jades full of spiritual chi. Perhaps there are 10 pieces of good jade full of spiritual energy inside, but in some well-known dead mining area, not to mention 40 caddies, even if you dig out 400 caddies of spiritual jade, there may not be a single piece of good jade. Meng Jueguang looked at Lin Yi, a cold smile on his face. At the end of the day, you'll only get paid if you dig up good jades. If they're all trash jades with only a little bit of chi in them, what's the point even if you empty the entire mine? Hee hee. Right. Senior apprentice brother Meng is right. When we dig for jade here, we should take a good look before we start. We should try our best to dig out those jade that seem to be of good quality. If we just use brute force to dig and don't pursue quality, then let alone 42 gene, with our current strength, it wouldn't be difficult for us to dig 400 gene in a day. Meng Tong immediately chimed in. 400 gene was an exaggeration. However, if one didn't focus on quality and blindly dug, it was still possible to dig up 100 gene. It was just that in those better mining areas, the ones that fell were obviously useless jades. They didn't even put them in the baskets. They just put them in the trash baskets, and only put the jade that looked good in their baskets. On the other hand, on Lin Yi's side, he was the only one, so he put all the good and bad jades together. After listening to Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong's words, everyone immediately regained their confidence. For a moment, they looked at Lin Yi with disdain and sarcasm. That's right. They came here to mine for the reward of spiritual jades. Even if Lin Yi dug out a few hundred caddies of jade and beat everyone here, so what? He was assigned to the 10th mining area. It was destined that he wouldn't be able to pick good jade that was full of spiritual chi. And without good jade, there would be no reward. This was common sense. Although according to the rules of Spirit Jade Hall, even if there was a lot of useless jade, it could be exchanged for good jade to receive the reward. However, this ratio was enough to make everyone give up hope. Even if it was a good quality useless jade, it would need at least 100 pieces to be equal to the spiritual chi of a good jade. As for the worse ones, that was the kind that only covered half of the outer layer of the spiritual jade, and inside was the useless jade core. The ratio was 1,000 to 1. To put it simply, if they wanted to rely on this to earn spiritual jades, they might as well prepare to retire here early. At least in a short period of time, there was absolutely no hope. Therefore, if one wanted to exchange this kind of worthless jade with a price of 1,000 to 1, it would cost 100,000 yuan to exchange for a piece of spiritual jade. Therefore, these people simply gave up. According to the old rules, it would be thrown into the public wastebasket. However, there was also a process of accumulation. These useless jades could be exchanged for rewards after a long time. However, it was filled by some people. These two people were Dai Wu Cheng and Meng Jueguang. However, this kind of thing also happened in the mining area of the other two pavilions. It was a tradition to show filial respect to the supervisor here and the supervisor of the welcoming pavilion. It was not a robbery, so others wouldn't say anything if they knew. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly as he looked at their expressions. Just how low did these people's self-esteem go? Why did they have to use him as a source of comfort? The Blue Cloud Pavilion was so weak, and it was passed down from generation to generation. It was not without reason. At this time, Lin Yi wanted to see what kind of expression this group of people would have when the quality inspection results came out. It must be very interesting. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yi put the spiritual jades on the weighing platform back into his basket and sent them to the quality inspection office next to him. There were 5 specially trained quality inspection personnel responsible for distinguishing the quality of the spiritual jades, recording everyone's results for the day and categorizing the spiritual jades and sending them to the warehouse. Compared to weighing, the work of quality inspection was obviously heavier. Even if there were 5 people working at the same time, there was still a row of baskets in front of Lin Yi. Looking at the names on the baskets, it happened to be Meng Tong and the other newcomers of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. At this time, one of the quality inspection personnel reported, Li Zhengming, 6 pieces of good jade, 22 pieces of useless jade. For a moment, all the newcomers looked at Li Zhengming with envy. For newcomers who were unfamiliar with the tricks of mining on their first day, it was quite good to be able to find more than 5 pieces of good jade in a day. Previously, several other newcomers had already finished quality inspection, and the best one only had 4 pieces of good jade. Of course, these people were assigned to Mining Area 8, which was a grade lower than Li Zhengming's Mining Area 7, so their results were not as good as Li Zhengming's. This was very normal. And then another quality inspection personnel reported, Meng Tong, 7 pieces of good jade, 23 pieces of useless jade. Chapter 3595. Hee, don't be envious of the 2 of them. Look at the result of our pretentious newcomer later. You will definitely feel better. Meng Jueguang sneered as he guided them. In fact, from his point of view, there was no need to even think about it. The 10th mining area was known to be a dead mining area with no good jade. Lin Yi's final result would definitely be a pile of useless jade. There would not be a single piece of good jade, and this was the effect that Meng Jueguang wanted. Newcomers like Meng Tong and Li Zhengming who listened to him could stay in a good mining area and collect at least 6 or 7 pieces of good jade a day. On the other hand, a disobedient troublemaker like Lin Yi would be assigned to the 10th dead mining area. He would be busy all day, but could not even find a piece of good jade. Comparing the 2, the newcomers present naturally knew what they should do. Those who obey me will prosper. Those who oppose me will perish. This was the minimum requirement that Meng Jueguang had for himself. If he could not even achieve this among the useless newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, then he would be letting down his authority as the big senior brother. In fact, if it was not for the troublemaker Lin Yi who had repeatedly ruined his plans, he would have achieved this step long ago based on previous years' experience. But now, not only had he not achieved this step, he even had a very bad premonition. The source of this premonition was this morning's scene. For the sake of Lin Yi, Meng Jueguang had endured many years of suffering. Now, Meng Jueguang actually dared to contradict him in public. For Meng Jueguang, who was used to having his own words, this was not a good sign. The reason why Meng Jueguang could enjoy his position as the big senior brother was because of his wide network. Although his background might not be very strong, he could rely on his scheming and meticulous research to make contact with people from all walks of life. It could be said that he had built a good network of relationships. But in addition to this, another more important reason was because of bitter joy. According to the rules of the welcoming pavilion, the newcomers of the 3 pavilions were managed by their respective senior brothers. In other words, under normal circumstances, the authority was divided equally between the 2 senior brothers. However, at the Blue Cloud Pavilion, due to the existence of Senior Brother Bitter, who could be said to be a weirdo, the Blue Cloud Pavilion's disciples were all shocked. That was why Meng Jueguang was able to monopolize the power without any suspense. In fact, if it were someone else who was slightly more motivated, it would not be easy for him to achieve this. After all, even if he was more experienced, their statuses were equal. Once they started competing, it would be very troublesome. Initially, Meng Jueguang was very satisfied with the current situation. However, today they actually dared to defy his will in public and even tried to rearrange the mining area for Lin Yi. This was simply challenging his authority. Although the confrontation had ended in a bitter defeat, it was not a good sign, especially with Lin Yi, this restless fellow, egging him on from behind. He might cause even more trouble in the future. Although in Meng Jueguang's eyes, the bitter fellow was not considered a worthy opponent, it was still a troublesome matter. It was better to nip it in the bud as soon as possible. And to achieve this, the most realistic thing was to take advantage of the bitter fellow to make trouble again and subdue all the other newcomers as soon as possible. When that time came, he would only have a few useless soldiers like Lin Yi. No matter how much the bitter fellow planned, he would not be able to shake Meng Jueguang's position as the senior brother. Meng Jueguang led the group of newcomers. He looked at Lin Yi with a sneer. When he dug painstakingly for a whole day, but in the end there was not a single piece of good jade, how would he feel? He would definitely be depressed to the point of wanting to kill himself. Looking at his basket being dragged in by the quality inspection personnel, Lin Yi's expression was normal. He even had a faint smile on his face. But in the eyes of the crowd, this fellow was obviously trying to maintain his dignity. He, the pretentious newcomer, really knows how to act. At this time, he can actually maintain his dignity without batting an eyelid. It really makes people sigh in admiration. Meng Tong curled his lips and sneered. What he disliked the most was Lin Yi's calm and collected manner. He was a living, pretentious criminal. Of course, if it was him who had the chance to be in the limelight, he would definitely be willing to learn. Presumably, he would be very willing to learn. After all, he looked unfathomable and awesome. Who wouldn't like to act cool? Humph! He dares to offend senior brother Meng. He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let's see how he cries later. Under Meng Jueguang's deliberate guidance, some of the newcomers had already thought it through and began to draw closer to Meng Jueguang. If it was before, these ordinary newcomers without any backing would definitely not offend Lin Yi in public, even if they disliked him. After all, from the performance on the first day when he defeated Meng Tong in one move, it could be seen that Lin Yi was definitely a tough guy. The consequences of offending him were obviously not good. But now, on one side was Meng Tong and Li Jinming's 6 or 7 pieces of spiritual jades. On the other side was Lin Yi's destined 0. With such a clear distinction in front of them, if they still did not know how to choose, they would really be stupid. At this time, stepping on Lin Yi in front of Meng Jueguang was a proof of allegiance. If they did not step on him, it would be a waste. If they did not step on him now, it would be too late. Since everyone was a heaven stage expert, naturally they were not stupid. After someone was the first to understand, the others quickly reacted. They were afraid that they would be labeled as abnormal by Meng Jueguang. They could not wait to start making sarcastic remarks about Lin Yi. The words that came out of their mouths were more and more unpleasant to hear. Although this group of newcomers did not have any talent, they were not too stupid. Meng Jueguang immediately laughed proudly. This was the effect that he wanted. Bitter, bitter. You, this kind of trash that only appears once in 10,000 years, wants to fight with me. You should first take a piss and look at your unlucky face. However, before he finished laughing, the next sentence that came from the quality inspection department made everyone suddenly stunned. Each of them were like ducks that had their necks pinched. Their faces turned red, but they could not say a word. Lin Yi, 8 good jades, 7 useless jades, 20 useless jades. The so-called useless jades were the kind of jades that looked like useless jades. Other newcomers would not want this kind of jades. Of course, it was considered as filial piety to their senior. 100,000 to exchange for the reward. How long would that take? Instead of being useless in their own hands, it was better to give it to Meng Jueguang. However, even if they did not mention the useless jades, although Lin Yi's useless jades were far less than Meng Tong and Li Jinming, the problem was that he actually had 8 good jades. How could he have 8? Wasn't he a dead mining area where not even 1 good jade could be found? If any newcomer could get 8 good jades on the first day, how could it be called a dead mining area? The quality could be ranked above the 7th mining area. It was almost the same as the 5th and 6th mining areas. Chapter 3596. After being stunned for a moment, Meng Jueguang's face was filled with disbelief. He couldn't help but raise his head and ask the person in charge of the quality inspection office, "Senior Tong, did you just report the wrong name? This Lin Yi is from the 10th dead mine. How could he possibly have 8 good jades?" This Senior Tong was an old man and a disciple of the mysterious pavilion. As the person in charge of the quality inspection office, although he usually didn't think much of the people from the Blue Cloud Pavilion, he had a good impression of Meng Jueguang after interacting with him a few times. From the 10th dead mine, Senior Tong couldn't help but frown in astonishment. How could there be 8 good jades in the 10th dead mine? Could it be that he had reported the wrong name? However, when he turned around and carefully checked, he discovered that Lin Yi's name was indeed written on the basket, and the 8 good jades were indeed taken out from the basket. He immediately shook his head in disbelief and said, "These 8 good jades are indeed Lin Yi's. There's no mistake." Senior Tong, are you sure those 8 are good jades? Could it be that you've made a mistake?" Meng Jueguang didn't give up and continued to ask. Meng Tong and the others beside him also had a determined expression of disbelief. Previously, when they were defeated by Lin Yi in one move, it could be said that it was a moment of carelessness. But now, they couldn't even beat him in mining. Moreover, he was the unlucky bastard who was assigned to the 10th dead mine. If this were to spread out, it would be too shameful. Made a mistake? Could it be that Junior Meng's ability to identify spiritual jades is even more accurate than this old man's? Why don't you come in and try? Senior Tong's face immediately darkened. The good impression that Meng Jueguang had deliberately created previously was instantly destroyed because of this one sentence. I don't dare. I'm not good with words. Senior Tong, please don't take it to heart." Meng Jueguang hurriedly apologized. He wanted to give himself a slap. Telling Senior Brother Tong, the person in charge of the quality inspection department, that he had made a mistake. And in front of so many people, this was no different from digging up someone's ancestral grave. His brain must have gone haywire. Even if it's the 10th dead mining area, as long as you're lucky enough, you can still dig up good jade. Senior Brother Tong coldly glanced at him and finally concluded, Lin, 8 pieces of good jade. There is no doubt about it. CKME. What kind of world was this? An unlucky bastard from the 10th dead mining area was actually able to dig up 8 pieces of good jade. How was he going to let them live? The group of rookies wanted to cry as they looked at the calm Linny. They then turned to look at the managing senior brother, Meng Jueguang. Although they did not dare to show it on their faces, they were already cursing in their hearts. This was completely different from the script they had agreed on. Originally, they thought that relying on Meng Jueguang, the managing senior brother, was an extremely wise choice, but now Meng Tong and Li Zhengming, who had received special care from Meng Jueguang, only managed to dig up 6 or 7 pieces of good jade. As for Lin Yi, the unlucky bastard who had clearly been pranked, he was able to dig up 8 pieces of good jade. Although they did not believe that the 10th dead mining area would have such an exaggerated jade production rate, they could at least infer one thing. For Lin Yi to be able to dig up so much good jade, Senior Brother Ku Bai definitely played a huge role. It was very likely that Senior Brother Ku Bai had helped him choose the mining spot, which was why he had such a high jade production rate. In that case, the choice to side with Senior Brother Ku Bai was not a wise choice. Ignoring everything else, at least in terms of jade mining, following Senior Brother Ku Bai was more reliable than Meng Jueguang. After all, there was Lin Yi as an example in front of him, and Senior Brother Ku Bai did not have many subordinates. If he were to side with him, he would definitely receive the same special care as Lin Yi. Even if he could not dig up 8 pieces a day, he could at least hope for 6 or 7 pieces. On the other hand, on the side of Meng Jueguang, who had always been strong, the people who sided with him were definitely the majority. It did not matter if there was 1 more or 1 less. Even if they sided with him, they might not receive much special care. In the end, they would definitely be much worse than Meng Tong and Li Jingming. Perhaps they would only be able to dig up 4 or 5 pieces a day, which was no different from their current situation. For a moment, the newcomers, who had clearly sided with Meng Jueguang, started to waver in front of Lin Yi, who was a living example. At least, they did not speak ill of Lin Yi as unscrupulously as before. This bunch of useless fence-sitters. Mang Jueguang quickly noticed this point and could not help but turn livid with anger. He could not wait to hang up this bunch of bastards and beat them up. Compared to Lin Yi, who was a clear-cut enemy, it was this bunch of fence-sitters who were more hateful. But because there was a potential opponent like Ku Bai Bai, Mang Jueguang could only endure it no matter how angry he was. Otherwise, if he really blew up and pushed this bunch of fence-sitters to Ku Bai Bai, then his good days as the senior brother would come to an end. Unable to open his mouth to scold this bunch of fence-sitters, Mang Jueguang could only make fun of Linny in the end. He snorted coldly and said, "Humph, it's just a moment of dog-shit luck. What's there to be proud of? I dare to bet that our pretentious newcomer can dig up at most 2 pieces of good jade tomorrow." Dog-shit luck won't always be there. If he could dig up 7 or 8 pieces of good jade every day, why would it be called the 10th dead mining area? Spirit Jade Hall would have redistributed it long ago. 9th cousin brother is right. What's the saying again? Oh, right, a villain intoxicated by success. I want to see how long this pretentious newcomer can be successful. I already can't wait to see this guy's crying face tomorrow. Ha ha ha. Mang Tong chimed in by the side. Seeing that everyone was looking at him with complicated expressions, Lin Yi, who was originally too lazy to speak, suddenly smiled. Oh, if you say dog shit luck, then dog shit luck. You're really right. I'm a rogue cultivator. If I don't have dog shit luck, how did I get to Heaven Stage Island? Maybe I'll continue to be dog shit luck tomorrow. Dog shit luck every day. Ah, pretend. Continue to pretend. Let's see if you can still pretend at this time tomorrow. Let's all wait and see if he's dog shit luck every day. Mang Jueguang, Mang Tong, and the rest sneered as they rolled their eyes. Obviously, they did not take Lin Yi's word seriously. They had already determined in their hearts that Lin Yi being able to dig up 8 pieces of good jade today was absolutely a once-in-1,000 years wait. After all, there wasn't anyone mining in the dead mining area all year round. It wasn't impossible for a few pieces of good jade to occasionally pop out, but it could only happen once and not again. How could there be such a thing as dog shit luck all the time? This country bumpkin who came up from the secular world wasn't a child of destiny. Once tomorrow came, he would inevitably reveal his true colors. Chapter 3597. Since this mining area was unanimously evaluated as the worst mining area by the big figures of the 3 pavilions, how could it be possible to continuously produce good jades? Wasn't everyone making a mistake? It was completely impossible. After watching the excitement, everyone dispersed with their own thoughts, and Lin Yi simply returned to his cave residence. Although he was tricked by Mang Jueguang in the morning during the division of the mining area, but overall, the day's events were relatively smooth. In any case, he got 2 pieces of spiritual jades, which was still very much in line with his expectations, and it turned out that the method of stealing spiritual jades that he found out was very reliable, and he could do it for a long time in the future. Now that he had 5 pieces of spiritual jades on hand, according to this situation, he could go to the marketplace to buy the 5 medicinal materials in 2 days, and then wait for the trial to try to get the heart-devouring, exquisite grass. And then he could prepare to refine the heavenly law gold pill, and there was hope for the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. The night was silent. Early the next morning, Lin Yi set off for Jade Spirit Hall again, and the other newcomers did the same. They had to work for at least 12 hours a day. This was the rule of Jade Spirit Hall. Perhaps it was too harsh for ordinary people with limited physical strength, but for these experts who were at least in the late stage of Heaven Realm, even if they did this all year round, there was no pressure at all. However, what Lin Yi didn't know was that although he felt that everything was going well and he was quite satisfied with the situation, there was someone outside who was running around for him, trying to help him get justice. Needless to say, This person was naturally Senior Brother Bitter. As for Lin Yi's disciple, Bitter Senior couldn't help him out most of the time. It was rare for him to be very attentive. This confirmed Lin Yi's impression of him from the very beginning. Although Ku Bai didn't have much power, he was still a man of his caliber. Although Senior Brother Bitter didn't have much ability, his character was also a mess. But his character was good, and compared to many others, he was much more reliable. However, even if he ran around for Lin Yi, his senior apprentice brother's qualifications were not as deep as Meng Jueguang's. Secondly, he did not have such a huge network like Meng Jueguang. There were not many people in Spirit Jade Hall who knew him, not to mention being able to talk to him. On the other hand, the other stewards of the welcoming pavilion were only responsible for the affairs of the other two pavilions. As for the trivial matters of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, they simply wouldn't care and couldn't be bothered to care. As for the few people with higher statuses, the great pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had always been biased towards Meng Jueguang due to Meng Jueguang's deliberate flattery. Although the vice pavilion master, Feng Song, competed with Hu Yunfeng in the open and in the dark, his backer was the mysterious pavilion, so he simply didn't care about a nobody like Ku Bai, not to mention speaking for him. After thinking it over, Senior Brother Bitter could only set his target on the last person, the vice pavilion master of the same rank as Feng Song in name, but in fact it was the third pavilion master, Lu Bianren, who was ignored by everyone. Speaking of this third pavilion master, Lu Bianren, whether it was the way he handled things or the current awkward situation, was a bit similar to Senior Brother Bitter himself. Although in name he was the high and mighty vice pavilion master. In theory, he should be one of the three giants of the welcoming pavilion, but in fact, due to the joint suppression of Hu Yunfeng and Feng Song, plus his Blue Cloud Pavilion's weak backer, Lu Bianren, the third pavilion master, to a large extent, was not even as powerful as the stewards of the three pavilions. As for prestige, there was no need to say anything. He didn't even have a chance to show his face at the welcoming ceremony, and many new disciples didn't even know what his name was. At most, they only knew that there was such an invisible third pavilion master, so it was obvious how weak his influence was. Of course, no matter how weak Lu Bianren, the third pavilion master, was after all a vice pavilion master, his status was still higher than the stewards, and the key was that he came from the Blue Cloud Pavilion. If he was allowed to speak, no matter how arrogant and despotic Meng Jueguang was, he had to give him some face. Otherwise, if Lu Bianren became angry and removed him from his position, there was nothing he could do about it. Although he could still find a backer to help him get a position when he returned to the Blue Cloud Pavilion, he would lose all his face. Because of their similar temperaments, among all the high-level figures in the welcoming pavilion, Lu Bianren was the only one who treated Senior Brother Bitter differently, and the only one who could get Senior Brother Bitter to talk to. Although the bitter senior brother knew that with the third pavilion lord's current awkward situation, it was impossible for him to make any big moves. However, if it was just a few words on behalf of the new disciple in the Clear Cloud Pavilion, it shouldn't be a problem. Lu Bianren was not in his number 3 abode. Senior Brother Bitter went to several places before he finally found out where he was. As the dignified third pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, he was usually not in the welcoming pavilion. Instead, he was sent to the back cliff, which was 30 miles away from the welcoming pavilion master's building. The so-called back cliff was also known as the reflection cliff in the welcoming pavilion. Generally speaking, only the disciples of the welcoming pavilion who had made mistakes would be sent here to reflect on their mistakes. Due to its remote location, the spiritual energy was thin, and the lack of cultivation resources, even the newcomers would not be willing to come here. Of course, Lu Bianren was not sent here because he had made a mistake. In fact, if he, the third pavilion master, had really made a mistake, even the great pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had no right to punish him. He had to be handed over to the people of the law enforcement hall. The reason why he was here now was that the great pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, and the deputy pavilion master, Feng Song, had jointly proposed to let him take charge of the reflection cliff to show that the welcoming pavilion attached great importance to the new disciples' discipline. Although it was said that no one would come to the Repent Cliff all year round, the two of them had made it perfectly justifiable. With Lu Bienren's weak position as the third pavilion master, there was no way he could resist. In the end, he could only agree. Now he was stationed here permanently. Nominally, he was in charge of the Repent Cliff, but in fact he had been banished by Huyin Feng and Feng Song. Originally, as the third pavilion master, no matter how weak his voice was in the Welcome Pavilion, he still had some power. But now, let alone power, it was difficult for him to even know what was happening in the Welcome Pavilion. He was completely a figurehead. If it were anyone else in Lu Bienren's position, they would probably fly into a rage. But Lu Bienren did not show any sign of dissatisfaction. Instead, he brought over all the ancient cultivation books and scriptures that he had collected in the past. From morning to night, he read the ancient books and meditated on the way of heaven. He was very happy to live in poverty and adapt to the circumstances. Chapter 3598. Pavilion Master Lu, you really made it hard for me to find you, Ku Bai said as he panted. It wasn't because of the 30 miles of running, but because he was so dizzy looking for Lu Bienren. Even an early phase foundation establishment practitioner, like him, was a little confused. Normal disciples wouldn't even know where Lu Bienren was, and the two pavilion masters who did know wouldn't be willing to see a manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Ku Bai earned a lot of money, and in the end he had no choice but to try and find the other two pavilion masters, and only then did he find out where Lu Bienren was. What's wrong? Did you need something from me, Ku Bai? Didn't I tell you to just call me Lu Shixiang, pavilion master? That's not up to me anymore. Come, have a glass of water, sit down and talk. Although Lu Bienren was a little surprised, he still calmly poured a glass of water for Ku Qian and specially brought out a chair. After drinking the water, Ku Bai said impatiently, Lu Shixiang, do you know if there are new people coming from the mortal world this year? I know. It's a pity that I moved here before the day of the welcoming ceremony. Without pavilion master whose permission, I can't leave easily. Otherwise, I would really like to meet these new people and find out what the secular world has become. Lu Bienren sighed regretfully. He was born on Sky Class Island, but ever since Zhang Liju, the legend of the mortal world, appeared on the North Island, he'd always been interested in the mortal world. It was a pity that there hadn't been any new people coming in for a long time, and there was no news about them. They were slowly becoming a legend. However, Zhang Liju's time in the North Island was too short. At that time, Qingyan Pavilion became a legend because of this outsider Zhang Liju. But now a few hundred years had passed, and Blue Cloud Pavilion had long fallen. Don't worry, Lu Shixiang, you'll get a chance to meet them soon. Seeing that Lu Bienren was interested in the newcomers from the secular world, the bitter senior brother immediately heaved a sigh of relief. In this case, he probably wouldn't refuse Lu Bienren's help in the future. Thus, he said, our Blue Cloud Pavilion has also been assigned 2 newcomers from the secular world. Moreover, their strength and character are quite good. They would definitely get along well with you, senior brother Lu. It's just that, because they came from the secular world, they were jointly suppressed by senior brother Meng and the other local newcomers. They're having a hard time now. You're being ganged up on? Was it because they were newcomers from the secular world? This is preposterous. Lu Bienren's expression immediately changed. Although he was happy to live in poverty, and his personality was quite similar to that of his bitter senior brother, he had his own principles on certain matters. Our Blue Cloud Pavilion has been weak for a long time. We can't compete with the other 2 pavilions in terms of newcomers, and what we need the most right now is fresh blood from the secular world. If we could get a legendary person like Zhang Liju, then we might be able to make a comeback. Meng Jueguang is the head disciple in charge, yet he's still trying to suppress the newcomers from the secular world. How stupid and short-sighted. The bitter senior brother had known this third pavilion master for so long. Even in the worst of situations, he was always calm and collected. He had never seen him this angry before. He said carefully, "Don't be too worried, Senior Brother Lu. Although they're being suppressed, the two newcomers from the secular world aren't easy to deal with either, especially one of the juniors called Lin Yi because of the distribution of the cave dwelling. He defeated Senior Brother Meng's cousin with one move on the first day, and even Senior Brother Meng lost to him. Oh, there's such a thing? Come, tell me in detail." Lu Bianren's eyes lit up, and he immediately became interested. The bitter senior brother wanted him to stand up for Lin Yi, but he wasn't in a rush right now. He sat down and told Lu Bianren everything that had happened these past few days, including how Lin Yi was sent to the 10th dead mine. He also told him the purpose of this trip. So this junior brother Lin is quite an interesting person, but he's a newcomer after all, and being bullied by Meng Jueguang like this is going to be disadvantageous for him. If he really wasted 3 months in the 10th dead mine, then it's the same as increasing the difficulty of him reaching the level of foundation within a year. Lu Bianren analyzed with interest. After the bitter senior brother's explanation, he was getting more and more interested in this tough newcomer Lin Yi. Junior brother Lin doesn't know how dangerous it is, and being stubborn is exactly what senior brother Meng wants. So after thinking about it, I can only ask senior brother Lu for help. The bitter senior brother didn't know that Lin Yi had picked 8 pieces of good jade yesterday. In his opinion, every day that Lin Yi stayed in the 10th mine was a waste of time. It was better to ask the 3rd pavilion master to save him as soon as possible. Well, I'm in charge of the Repent Cliff now. Without pavilion master Hu Yunfeng's permission, I can't go out at will, Lu Bianren said in a low voice. He wasn't trying to evade, but was telling the truth. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had no chance to show up at the welcoming ceremony that day. The bitter senior brother's heart sank when he heard this. The 3rd pavilion master was the only help he could find. If even the 3rd pavilion master couldn't show up, then there was really no way he could help Lin Yi. Unexpectedly, Lu Bianren's tone changed, but this matter concerns a newcomer in the secular world, an entire plan of our Blue Cloud Pavilion. Even if I have to risk being scolded by Pavilion Master Hu, I still have to show up. That's great. I thank Senior Brother Lu on behalf of Junior Brother Lin. Then, shall we go find Senior Brother Meng? The bitter senior brother was overjoyed. Although Lu Bianren didn't have any power or prestige, he was still the 3rd pavilion master of Blue Cloud Pavilion. If he was willing to show up, Meng Jueguang wouldn't dare to disobey him. Lu Bianren shook his head and said, "No, let's go directly to the Jade Spirit Hall." He knew what the bitter senior brother was thinking. He wanted him to put pressure on Meng Jueguang from top to bottom, so that Meng Jueguang would no longer target Lin Yi. This was a way to end all troubles. But he knew Meng Jueguang. This was a very ambitious and realistic person. Putting pressure on others might be effective, but it would be useless against Meng Jueguang. Meng Jueguang might agree on the surface, but he would certainly agree on the surface, but oppose it in secret. He might even target Lin Yi behind his back, and it would have the opposite effect. In contrast, going directly to the Jade Spirit Hall and using some of the resources he had accumulated in the past could save Lin Yi from the 10th mining area faster. Chapter 3599. The two immediately left the back cliff and went straight to Spirit Jade Hall. However, after arriving at Spirit Jade Hall, the two did not go to the number 10 mining area to find Lin Yi. Instead, they found the person in charge of the contract at the entrance, Dai Wucheng. "Yo, isn't this Pavilion Master Lu? Long time no see." When Dai Wucheng saw Lu Bianren, he immediately stood up and greeted him with a smile. As for the bitter senior brother behind him, he was directly ignored by him. Although Lu Bianren's situation in the welcome pavilion was awkward, he was also a deputy pavilion master level figure. In Spirit Jade Hall, he was a real high-level person. It was not comparable to a small steward like Dai Wuchang. What's more, when he was in Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lu Bianren also took care of him, so the relationship between the two was not bad. Looking at junior brother Dai's expression, it can be seen that you are proud of your success. Lu Bianren responded with a smile. This Dai Wuchang was responsible for the contract. If they wanted to change the mining area for Lin Yi, finding a breakthrough from him was the best choice. After all, Spirit Jade Hall had its own rules. Under normal circumstances, once the contract was signed, it could not be easily changed. Senior brother Lu is a rare guest. Are you going to the mining area to inspect the newcomer of your welcome pavilion? Dai Wuchang asked with a smile. At Lu Bianren's level, no matter how unhappy he was, he would not go to the mines to mine. He basically came here to inspect the newcomer. To be honest, junior brother Dai, I came here this time to look for you. I have something to ask of you. Lu Bianren went straight to the point. Because of a little misunderstanding, our Blue Cloud Pavilion has a newcomer junior brother assigned to the number 10 mining area. As the old people of Blue Cloud Pavilion, we can't let him waste his good time. The newcomer senior brother Lu mentioned, is it Lin Yi? Dai Wuchang's face suddenly changed. Yes, it's Lin Yi. I wonder if junior brother Dai can help with this? Lu Bianren nodded. Dai Wuchang couldn't help but be a little embarrassed. To him, Lin Yi was just an insignificant person. Since Lu Bianren had spoken up for Lin Yi in front of him, it was only a matter of lifting a finger to give him face. There was no need to offend him over such a small matter. However, this Lin Yi was a troublemaker that Meng Jueguang had specifically warned. On one side was Lu Bianren, and on the other side was Meng Jueguang. This put Dai Wuchang in a dilemma. It must be known that independent departments like the Spirit Jade Hall and Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion, although they were nominally independent of the 3 great pavilions, in reality, the positions of these independent departments from top to bottom were uniformly appointed by the 3 great pavilions, and the personnel were also selected from within the 3 great pavilions. Moreover, they retained the right to conscript them at any time. In other words, whether it was Lu Bianren, the deputy pavilion master of the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion, or Dai Wuchang, the steward of the Spirit Jade Hall, even if they were doing well outside, in the end, they were still people of Blue Cloud Pavilion. When the time limit was up, they would still be conscripted back by Blue Cloud Pavilion. And this Lu Bianren, no matter how down and out he was still the deputy pavilion master of the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion. In the future, if he was transferred back to Blue Cloud Pavilion, he would inevitably be a person with real power. For Dai Wuchang, even if it was for his own future, it was absolutely not a bad thing to do the other party a favor at this time. But the problem was, this matter also involved Meng Jueguang. Although Meng Jueguang was now just a small steward of the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion, in terms of status, he could not be compared with Lu Bianren. Moreover, Meng Jueguang was also Lu Bianren's subordinate in the Welcoming Newcomer Pavilion. In this way, this choice did not seem difficult to make, but the key was, Lu Bianren's side was just a distant favor for Dai Wuchang, but Meng Jueguang's side was related to his own interests. It was no exaggeration to say that the spirit jades that Dai Wuchang had accumulated in his hands now, 80% of them were obtained from Meng Jueguang's side. Of course, this was all through shady channels. With Spirit Jade Hall's stringent supervision of spirit jades, if it wasn't for Meng Jueguang, this smooth and slick fellow, Dai Wuchang wouldn't have any chance at all by himself. Even if he had the convenience of his position as the person in charge, it was absolutely impossible for him to get any bit of profit. If it was just to sell a favor to Lu Bianren, he would offend Meng Jueguang and cut off his biggest source of income. This did not look like a wise choice, no matter how one looked at it. It was just that on Lu Bianren's side, It was not good to rashly offend such a small character. Why? Is there a difficulty in this matter? Seeing that Dai Wuchang did not answer for a long time, Lu Bianren could not help frowning. In his view, this should be just a trivial matter. After all, he would not have thought that Dai Wuchang and Meng Jueguang would have such a deep involvement. Dai Wuchang pondered for a moment and finally made up his mind. He said with a wry smile, "Pavilion Master Lu, logically speaking, since you have spoken, Junior Apprentice Brother will definitely not have any objections. But to tell you the truth, recently our Spirit Jade Hall has been investigating this kind of matter very strictly. This matter is not easy to handle. Investigating very strictly." Lu Bianren was taken aback. If it was someone else, they might really be deceived by Dai Wuchang. But he had already heard Senior Apprentice Brother Bitter describe the situation at that time. At this time, looking at Dai Wuchang's unnatural expression, he immediately understood in his heart. Lu Bianren thought for a while and said, "Junior Apprentice Brother Dai, this matter concerns the development of newcomers. This matter is not only me begging you, but also for the consideration of our entire Blue Cloud Pavilion. Please be sure to help. I will remember today's favor in my heart. In the future, when I return to Blue Cloud Pavilion, there will be a repayment." "Sigh, Pavilion Master Lu, aren't you making things difficult for me, Junior Apprentice Brother? I also want to help, but I really dare not violate the rules of Spirit Jade Hall." Dai Wuchang had already made up his mind and refused to budge no matter what. Moreover, he has already signed the contract. If it is changed, without the introduction letter of your welcoming pavilion's head pavilion master, I can't do anything about it, and I can't explain it to the higher-ups. You also know that sometimes only the chief pavilion master has the authority to coordinate these matters. Really can't help. Lu Bianren's face turned cold. This matter was originally not a troublesome matter. Moreover, no matter what, he had taken care of this Dai Wuchang in the past. Now that it had come to this, the other party was still making excuses. Even a clay figurine still had some temper. Moreover, this guy even brought up the chief pavilion master. Did he mean that his authority as a deputy pavilion master was not enough? I really can't help. Seeing the other party's face change, Dai Wuchang simply did not pretend and straightforwardly refused. Chapter 3600. That's good. I have some friendship with your Spirit Jade Hall's Deputy Hall Master Tong Fei. I'd like to ask him when the Spirit Jade Hall has such strict rules that even people can't change mining areas. Lu Bianren looked coldly at Dai Wuchang. Although the Spirit Jade Hall did have relevant rules that people couldn't change mining areas at will, in fact, this was not an absolute hard and fast rule. In many cases, exceptions were allowed, especially when it involved the number 10 dead mining area. After all, everyone knew that there was no good jade to be dug out in the number 10 dead mining area. Generally, only the unlucky ghosts who offended the higher-ups would be sent to this dead mining area. However, from the perspective of Spirit Jade Hall itself mining spirit jade, they didn't want to waste rare labor in this place. Therefore, once the matter of changing mining areas involved the number 10 dead mining area, it was generally allowed as an exception. Pavilion Master Lu, don't be anxious. This matter is actually not impossible to discuss. Dai Wuchang suddenly became anxious. He could not put Lu Bianren in his eyes, but he could not put the Spirit Jade Hall's Deputy Hall Master Tong Fei in his eyes. That was his immediate superior, an existence that could deprive his rice bowl with one word. "Oh, didn't you say that the investigation is very strict? Why is there a discussion?" Lu Bianren said with a smile that was not a smile, looking at the other party with contempt. Dai Wuchang's old face suddenly turned red, embarrassed for a long time and couldn't say a word. To be honest, he was not afraid that Lu Bianren would find Tong Fei to change the mining area for Lin Yi, but he was afraid that the other party would mention the matter between him and Meng Jueguang. Tong Fei, This deputy hall master was famous in the Spirit Jade Hall for being incorruptible and impartial. Once Lu Bianren said a few bad words in front of him, or even let Tong Fei start to investigate him, then he would really be finished. The matter between him and Meng Jueguang could not stand up to investigation at all. Once this matter was really exposed, don't talk about losing his rice bowl according to the Spirit Jade Hall's rules. People who took bribes would be directly abolished. Those who took bribes would have their cultivation crippled. In serious cases, they would even be beheaded on the spot. Seeing Dai Wuchang's defeated look, the bitter senior brother couldn't help but snicker. Last time, this guy was still arrogant in front of him, but now he was scared by the third pavilion master and immediately became listless. Everything has its vanquisher. This time, he really found the right person to ask the third pavilion master for help. Since the other party was also a fellow disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lu Bianren didn't intend to make things difficult for him, even though he was furious. He directly said, "Let's not talk about anything else. I'll have to trouble you to get Lin Yi to the 7th mine." This all right. Dai Wuchang hesitated for a moment, but in the end he could only grit his teeth and agree. Putting himself in danger because of a small fry like Lin Yi, even if the possibility of Tong Fei coming down to investigate him was not high, Dai Wuchang could not afford to take the risk. Moreover, there was no need to take the risk. At most, he would explain it to Meng Jueguang later. He believed that he would understand. It was done. The bitter senior brother's heart instantly relaxed. The third pavilion master was here. Sure enough, it was a success. This time, Lin Yi could finally escape from the abyss of suffering. However, before the bitter senior brother could breathe a sigh of relief, a voice came from afar. Everyone's face changed immediately, I'd like to see. Who has the guts to trade Lin Yi out of the 10th mining area? This voice sounded a little familiar. The bitter senior brother was shocked. When he saw the face of the person coming from afar, his face fell immediately. Even Lu Bianren, who was beside him, couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. There were a total of 3 people, all familiar faces that appeared in the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers' cave. Kong Mingming, Zhong Pingliang, and walking in front of them was the young master of Blaster Pavilion, Su Lingchong. "Young Master Su, what kind of wind blew you here? I didn't go out to welcome you. Please forgive me." Dai Wuchang saw the situation and quickly went to greet them. With the backing of the 3rd elder of Blaster Pavilion, Su Lingchong was a very popular young master, no matter where he went. As for a small character like Dai Wuchang who had no background, even if he came from the Clear Cloud Pavilion, Huang Xiaolong had to think of every possible way to curry favor with him. After all, once he managed to get close to this young Master Su, as long as young Master Su put in a few good words for him, a meteoric rise in the future was just around the corner. Su Lingchong waved his hand casually, then turned his eyes to Lu Bianren and sneered, "I was wondering who was so powerful to be able to shout in Jade's Spirit Hall and trade mining areas. Isn't this the legendary 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion? I heard that he recently took charge of the Repent Cliff. He seems to have quite a lot of power. No wonder he's so powerful." Repent Cliff? Was there such a place in the Welcoming Pavilion? It sounded really awesome. Could it be the legendary hidden checkpoint? Could it be that this person was the legendary hidden boss? I didn't have the chance to see him at the welcome ceremony. I didn't expect to see him here. It's really a blessing of 3 lifetimes, ha ha ha. Kong Mingming followed behind and sneered. As a new disciple, the Repent Cliff was introduced to them on the first day they came. At this time, he pretended to make a fuss, naturally to disgust Lu Bianren. It was reasonable to say that the Repent Cliff was one of the tasks that the new deacon was in charge of. It was a place with no big deal. However, the new deacon was not elected, so Lu Bianren could only continue to manage it. He couldn't find a way to change the place. Otherwise, Even if he had no power, he would have suggested it to Blue Cloud Pavilion. This was also related to the status of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Even if Blue Cloud Pavilion was rank third, it was impossible to give up this power. Hugging a thick thigh like Su Lingchong. Even if he, Kong Mingming, was a new disciple, he didn't put Lu Bianren, the third pavilion master, in his eyes at all. Lu Bianren, the third pavilion master, was in an awkward position. Being teased by a new disciple, Lu Bianren's face couldn't help but stiffen. However, he couldn't get angry in front of Su Lingchong, the young master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Even if he could control Kong Mingming in name, Su Lingchong could refute him casually. At that time, he would be the one suffering. Moreover, Kong Mingming was an outer disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion. His punishment must be approved by the great pavilion master, Hu Yinfeng. Otherwise, as the third pavilion master, it would be equivalent to him farting, and it would be the kind that wouldn't make a sound. Seeing Lu Bianren's stiff face and not saying anything, Su Lingchong's gaze towards him became even more disdainful. Chapter 3601. This time, the reason why Su Lingchong came out of the inner sect of Soaring Sky Pavilion was that, firstly, Kong Mingming had repeatedly begged him to bring him to Spirit Jade Hall so that it would be convenient for him to do things in Spirit Jade Hall in the future. Secondly, he had also received information from Kong Mingming, saying that the ignorant newcomer in the secular world, Lin Yi, had suffered a big loss this time and was sent to Dead Mine number 10 by Meng Jueguang. So, on a whim, he came out to watch the show. Unexpectedly, before he could see the show, he ran into this matter. Lu Bianren, this 10,000-year-old coward, actually wanted to change the mind for Lin Yi. He was just a mere third pavilion master of Welcome Pavilion. Did he really think that he was a big shot? Who was it just now that said that he wanted to change the mind for Lin Yi? Was it you, Pavilion Master Lu San? Su Lingchong curled his lips and looked at Lu Bianren, but there was undisguised disdain on his face. Yes, it was me. Lu Bianren braced himself and said, "Oh, so it was really Pavilion Master Lu San who said it. Then I don't understand. Since when can a mere third Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion intervene in the affairs of Spirit Jade Hall? Could it be that Spirit Jade Hall has already been annexed by Welcome Pavilion, or has Spirit Jade Hall been annexed by your Repent Cliff?" Su Lingchong sneered and said aggressively, "Hee, look at what young Master Su is saying. Welcome Pavilion is so poor and shabby. Even if it is annexed, it should be our Spirit Jade Hall annexing them." Dai Wucheng echoed with a smile. Although he was frightened by Lu Bianren just now that he had Su Lingchong to back him up, he naturally didn't have to worry about Lu Bianren's expression anymore. Although they were both independent departments, Welcome Pavilion and Spirit Jade Hall were nominally at the same level. But Welcome Pavilion could only manage a group of new disciples who had just entered the sect, while Spirit Jade Hall was in charge of the entire North Island's money bag. Even the 3 pavilions attached great importance to it. The appointment of the Pavilion Master of Spirit Jade Hall was completely not on the same level as the appointment of the Pavilion Master of Welcome Pavilion. The status of the two could not be mentioned in the same breath. Haha, I actually hope that young Master Su's words are true. If Pavilion Master Lu San really has the ability to annex Spirit Jade Hall, then I'll have to burn incense and worship him. When I become the new deacon next month and take over Reflection Cliff, won't I be in charge of Spirit Jade Hall then? That's just wishful thinking. Kong Xiaoming chuckled behind him. Dream on. You're practically a toad lusting after the flesh of a swan. Oh, that's not right. The toad should be a certain third pavilion master. Su Lingchong and the others immediately burst into laughter. Listening to these people's unbridled mockery, Yi Zichen's heart skipped a beat. Lu Bianren's face darkened involuntarily. Although he did not have the confidence to contend with Su Lingchong, it was related to Lin Yi's future, and even more related to his insistence all along. In the end, he still looked firm and said in a sonorous voice, Young master, Sue must be joking. I'm not meddling in the affairs of Spirit Jade Hall. But Spirit Jade Hall originally has this special case. The newcomers in the 10th mining area can be changed to other mining areas at their discretion. And Lin E is a newcomer in my welcome pavilion, so I request to change the mining area for Lin E, not exceeding my authority. Oh, there's such a special case in Spirit Jade Hall? Dai Wu Cheng, you're the person in charge of the mining area contract. So you should be the clearest about this matter. Tell me about it. Su Lingchong raised his eyebrows and looked at Dai Wu Cheng. In reply to young Master Su, I've been working here for some years, but I've never heard of such a special case. Why don't you ask this pavilion master Liu San to point it out to me face to face? Which section and which article in the regulations of Spirit Jade Hall is this special case he's talking about? Dai Wu Cheng looked serious, looking at Liu Bianren with a sneer. You. Liu Bianren's face involuntarily turned green. He choked until he couldn't speak for a long time. This so-called special case in the 10th mining area was actually something that everyone had agreed upon for a long time. From top to bottom in Spirit Jade Hall, everyone knew that there was such a thing, and they all knew that it was reasonable to do so, but it had never been written into the regulations. Dai Wu Cheng deliberately saying, so now, was clearly nitpicking. Oh, turns out that Spirit Jade Hall doesn't have such a rule at all. It's just that Pavilion Master Liu San deliberately fabricated it for convenience. Luckily Dai Wu Cheng is here today, or else this young master would really be deceived by you. I've always heard how useless Pavilion Master Liu San is. Now it looks like the rumors are wrong. He's actually quite sinister. Su Lingchong pretended to be angry. He naturally knew about the special case in the 10th mining area, but since the other party had already taken the initiative to deliver a handle to his door, it would be a waste not to make use of it. Don't you slander me. Liu Bianren was not a person with a sharp tongue to begin with. Now that Su Lingchong and the rest joined hands to scold him, he immediately had no way to refute. He could only look at Dai Wu Cheng with a cold face and said, Junior apprentice brother Dai, since you insist on seizing a chicken feather as an arrow of authority, then I can't do anything about it. Wait for me to find Deputy Hall Master Tong Fei to come forward. At that time, let's see what you have to say. As he spoke, Liu Bianren was about to turn around and leave with the bitter senior apprentice brother. Dai Wu Cheng's face suddenly changed. Although there were no loopholes in what he said just now, anyone with a discerning eye knew that he was deliberately helping Su Lingchong to scold Liu Bianren. The reason was actually not tenable, and the more crucial point was that Deputy Hall Master Tong Fei came from the profound secrets pavilion. Towards the soaring sky pavilion's Su Lingchong, these arrogant and despotic young masters, he had always been unable to tolerate it. If this matter really spread to Tong Fei's ears, he, Dai Wu Cheng, might be implicated and even turn to start investigating him. That would be playing big. Dai Wu Cheng immediately looked at Su Lingchong for help. However, before he could speak, Su Lingchong had already taken the initiative to speak. Wait! Liu Bianren originally didn't want to pay attention to him, but due to the other's deep background, he could only patiently stop his footsteps. He turned his head to look at Su Lingchong and said, Is there anything else? There's nothing else. I just want to tell you, third pavilion master, Liu a sentence. Su Lingchong smiled with ridicule and said, If you go to find Tong Fei to change the mining area for Lin Yi, then I won't stop you. But after I go back, I will tell my grandfather that the people of Blue Cloud Pavilion are getting more and more outrageous. They are obviously sitting in the position of the third pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, but they stretch their hands into the Spirit Jade Hall. Their power is simply monstrous, and they look down on everyone. Shouldn't we talk to the Elder Guild and reorganize the 3 pavilions like 3 years ago? Hiss! Hearing this, Liu Bianren couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Looking at the complacent Su Lingchong, his expression was uncertain. Chapter 36:02. It was no exaggeration to say that the Elders' Council was the highest power center of the entire North Island, and the elders who could be listed in the Elders' Council were the highest level of giants in the North Island. The third elder of Soaring Pavilion, who was also Su Lingchong's grandfather, was one of them. Lu Bianren couldn't help but sneer at the thought of the mighty reorganization of the three pavilions 3 years ago. The reorganization of the three pavilions was initiated by the Elders' Council and involved many aspects, including the three pavilions and all the major independent departments. For the weakest Blue Cloud Pavilion, it was a catastrophe. Because of its weakness, although Blue Cloud Pavilion also had people who could enter the Elders' Council, the number of people in the three pavilions had always been the smallest, and correspondingly, the right to speak was also the weakest. During that reorganization, the small power of Blue Cloud Pavilion was almost completely divided up by Soaring Pavilion and Mysterious Pavilion. The most obvious example was independent departments like Welcoming Pavilion and Spirit Jade Hall. As far as the eye could see, there was not a single person from Blue Cloud Pavilion. Not a single one. It was one thing if others were muddle-headed, but for someone like Lu Bianren, who had been longing for the Clear Cloud Pavilion to regain its former glory, the period of reorganization was unforgettable. Even though 3 years had passed since then, the Clear Cloud Pavilion showed no signs of recovering. In fact, it was getting worse with each passing day, becoming weaker and weaker. If the three pavilions were to be reorganized now, it was possible that Blue Cloud Pavilion would directly fall apart. In the face of such an undisguised threat from Su Lingchong, other people without a sense of responsibility might not take it to heart. But for people like Lu Bianren, this threat was simply fatal. In fact, even if the other party directly threatened his personal safety, with Lu Bianren's character, he might not retreat. But this matter concerned the fate of the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion, so he had to be careful. Taking a deep breath, he calmed the raging waves in his heart. Lu Bianren looked at the other party and said slowly, "Young Master Su, it's just changing the mining area for a newcomer. It's just a trivial matter. There's no need to mobilize so many people to frighten people, right?" "Oh, trivial? Looks like Pavilion Master Lu Sen has been banished to the Repent Cliff for too long and is ignorant and ill-informed. He doesn't even know what's going on outside." Su Lingchong sneered, then said in an awe-inspiring tone, "Lin Yi, the newcomer of your Blue Cloud Pavilion, doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He actually dares to disobey my orders, making me lose face in front of so many people. Do you think I let this bastard go? If you dare to change the mind for him, don't blame me for bringing disaster to the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion. Young Master Su, aren't you being a little too overbearing? What's more, a great person shouldn't hold grudges against a lowly person. Why do you, the dignified young Master Su, have to be so angry with a newcomer?" Lu Bianren still wanted to fight for Lin Yi one last time, but he understood in his heart that since Su Lingchong had spoken to this extent, it was already impossible to make Su Lingchong relent. "Domineering? I'm still that domineering. What, you want to bite me? Do you have the guts to do that? Ha ha ha." Su Lingchong laughed in an incomparably insolent manner. Just based on the fact that his grandfather was a member of the Elders' Council, no one in the Clear Cloud Pavilion dared to provoke him. As for Lu Bianren, the infamous good-for-nothing in the Welcoming Pavilion, it was even less likely that he would put him in his eyes. Lu Bianren was so angry that his face turned ashen, but in the end he could only grit his teeth and endure, not to mention whether or not he could beat Su Lingchong. Just based on Su Lingchong's sensitive identity, if he really made a move against him, it would give Soaring Sky Pavilion enough of an excuse to denounce him. At that time, it would be an immeasurable disaster for the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion. Letting out a long breath, Lu Bianren knew that there was no meaning in staying here any longer. He would only be inviting humiliation. He could only turn his head and say to Senior Apprentice Brother Bitter, "Things can't be done, let's go." Senior apprentice Brother Bitter nodded silently. After helplessly sighing, he could only turn around and leave with Lu Bienren. Now that things had developed to this point, Lu Bienren could no longer be blamed for not trying his best. In fact, he had fought for Lin Yi time and time again, and was already taking a big risk. If he were to quarrel with Su Lingcheng for the sake of Lin Yi and ultimately bring disaster to the entire Blue Cloud Pavilion, then he would really become the sinner of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Young Master Su is indeed mighty and domineering. In front of our young Master Su, this third pavilion master is simply like a stray dog. He doesn't even dare to let out a fart. He's really a complete good-for-nothing. Kong Mingming and the others looked at Lu Bienren and Su Lingcheng's dejected backs and couldn't help but burst into laughter. They hurriedly flattered Lu Bienren. Su Lingcheng smiled proudly. With his identity and position, scaring Lu Bienren away was simply a small matter that wasn't even worth mentioning. With this kind of trash, he wanted to stand up for Lin Yi. He really didn't know how to write the word death. Young Master Su, these two are? After laughing, Dai Wuchang pointed at Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang and asked. When Lu Bienren threatened to find Tong Fei just now, he was still on tenterhooks. But now that Su Lingcheng had already come out and scared Lu Bienren away, he naturally had nothing to worry about. This is Kong Mingming and Zhong Pingliang. These two are newcomers from the secular world this year. They are now outer sect disciples of my Soaring Sky Pavilion. They are also my subordinates. Today, I brought them over for you to get to know. Su Lingcheng said indifferently. So, it's Junior Brother Kong and Junior Brother Zhong. Both of you are really talented. No wonder young Master Su appreciates you. Dai Wuchang hurriedly flattered. Although Dai Wuchang wholeheartedly wanted to curry favor with Su Lingcheng, because he was born in Blue Cloud Pavilion, a young master like Su Lingcheng wouldn't put him in his eyes at all. At most, Su Lingcheng would call him when he needed him. In comparison, it was more reliable to curry favor with a newcomer like Kong Mingming. After all, this was equivalent to indirectly hugging onto Su Lingcheng's thick thigh. You're too polite. Senior Brother Dai too. Please take care of me in the future. Kong Mingming smiled faintly and said politely. As a newcomer who had been taken care of by Su Lingcheng recently, he had already started to learn to put on airs. Although he wanted to make friends with people like Dai Wuchang, he couldn't lower his status. He had to maintain a psychological advantage and take the initiative. Only then would he be able to use the other party. At the same time, Zhong Pingliang also took the opportunity to build a relationship with Dai Wuchang. After all, if he wanted to play the role of a spy, he couldn't fall too far behind Kong Mingming. Otherwise, even if the other party made a move, he might not be able to get the specific information. Chapter 3603. Although his main purpose for coming out this time was to see Lin Yi make a fool of himself, since he had promised to help Kong Mingming build connections, he naturally had to introduce a few high-level people to them. As for low-level managers like Dai Wuchang, if he hadn't happened to meet them just now, he wouldn't have bothered to care about them. Then, take care, young Master Su and junior brothers. Dai Wuchang hesitated for a moment, and finally had to send them off, respectfully. He originally wanted to remind Su Lingcheng not to be happy so early. After all, he knew that Lin Yi dug out 8 pieces of good jade yesterday, which made Meng Jueguang and the others who were ready to see him make a fool of himself. Maybe this young master, Su, would repeat the same mistake. But thinking about it, in a dead mining area like 10th, it was already a miracle that he was able to dig up 8 pieces of good jade yesterday. He couldn't possibly be that lucky today, could he? It wasn't like he was the legendary child of fortune. Therefore, in the end, Dai Wuchang held back his words, in case his reminder didn't come true and deliberately spoiled the mood, leaving a stain in young Master Su's heart. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned dark, and the melodious bell rang throughout the major mining areas. It was time to hand over the work. In each mining tunnel, people came out one after another. They were first weighed and then inspected. After going through this never-changing handover process, most people left one after another. After all, they had been mining for a whole day. Even if they could hold on physically, they were still a little tired mentally. Even if they went back to the cave residence to meditate and practice, it would be a rare recovery. However, a group of Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, led by Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, stayed at the quality inspection office like yesterday to see Lin Yi make a fool of himself. Although he was disgraced by Lin Yi's 8 pieces of good jade yesterday, Meng Jueguang absolutely didn't believe that Lin Yi could still have that kind of luck today. Otherwise, it would be too strange. What he didn't expect was that before Lin Yi arrived, Su Lingchong and the others had arrived. He hurriedly went forward to curry favor with him. However, after clarifying the other party's intentions, especially when asked about yesterday's situation, Meng Jueguang's expression couldn't help but turn strange. He could only force a smile and say, "That brat was lucky yesterday and managed to get a few pieces of good jade." However, there is no such thing as being lucky every day. Today is the day he reveals his true colors. Young Master Su, just wait and enjoy his unfortunate expression. That kid actually dug up a few good jades yesterday. Su Lingchong was surprised, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, even the dead mining area know. 10 would occasionally produce good jade, but it was absolutely impossible to produce good jade every day. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called the dead mining area. The group of people raised their heads and waited for almost an hour. When the others were almost gone, they finally saw Lin Yi's figure on empty mine number 10. The corners of their mouths immediately curled up into a mocking smile. "Brat, let's see if you can continue to be so proud today." Today's lineup is not small. Could it be that you are all looking forward to me digging up more jade today? When Lin Yi raised his head and saw this group of people, he couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment, especially when he saw familiar faces like Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming. After coming to his senses, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. With so many people rushing to watch him hand over his work, Lin Yi really didn't know whether he should feel honored or sad. Of course, if he wanted to be sad, he should be sad for this group of people. Meng Jueguang and the others were fine. After all, they were originally close to the mining area. However, a big shot like Su Lingchong came all the way to see him make a fool of himself. When the time came, he wouldn't be able to make a fool of himself and would instead be snubbed. Wasn't that sad? Pretentious newbie. Today, I dug up 8 pieces of good jade. Let's see if you can still be as lucky as yesterday. But out of humanitarianism, I guess you should still be able to dig up 8 pieces. It's a pity that they are all useless jade. Ha ha ha. Seeing Lin Yi appear, Meng Tong immediately jumped out impatiently. Today, he wanted to properly provoke Lin Yi. Meng Jueguang personally went into action and guided Meng Tong from the side to dig up jade. And Meng Tong also did his best to dig up jade. In the end, the result was even more than yesterday. It was simply the envy of others. Of course, because there were more people in the 7th mining area, Meng Tong wasn't alone. There were also some outer court disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion who didn't successfully advance to the Heavenly Law Foundation establishment early stage in the previous batch. They no longer had the treatment of cave abodes. They could only rely on the jade that they earned through hard work and slowly cultivate. When they broke through, they could then participate in the inner court disciple trial again to advance to the inner court. Therefore, even with Meng Jueguang's help, Meng Jueguang could only help Meng Tong search for jade in a place where there was no one around. The efficiency wasn't very high either. This made him a little envious of his bitter senior brother. This guy could help Lin Yi search for jade in the entire 10th mining area. Not to mention the other newcomers in the 8th mining area. Even Li Zhengming, who was assigned to the same mining area as Meng Tong, was looking at Meng Tong with envy. Meng Tong had only picked up 5 pieces of good jade today. 8 pieces? That's not bad. You're almost catching up to me. But you still have to continue to work hard. Lin Yi purposely raised his eyebrows. As he spoke, he poured the spirit jades in the basket onto the weighing platform. F***CK. You're just lucky once. You're just an unlucky bastard from the 10th mining area. What are you so proud of? Let's see how you cry during the quality inspection later. Meng Tong almost exploded with anger. He had tried his best to beat Lin Yi today, but in the end, Lin Yi didn't even put him in his eyes. Compared to being looked down upon, this kind of nonchalant disregard was even more hateful and infuriating. 45 caddies and 3 tails. No problem. The staff member in charge of weighing reported after checking the account book handed in by the guard. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. Just like yesterday, he had secretly hidden 2 pieces of waste jade with insufficient spiritual qi. In fact, with the amount of waste jade he had dug out today, it wasn't impossible to hide 1 more piece. But in that case, all the waste jade he had dug out today would have to be charged into good jade. All of them were good jades full of spiritual qi, but there wasn't a single piece of waste jade. This was a little unscientific. In order to avoid shooting the bird that stuck out, it was better to be more stable. After all, there was still a long way to go. Hearing this number, Su Lingchong, who was waiting to see a joke, couldn't help but slightly change his expression. Although he had never personally mined because of his deep background, he had worked as a steward in the Spirit Jade Hall for a period of time in order to gain some experience. So, he had some concept of these processes. Chapter 3604. Even the 10th mining area couldn't control him. Was this kid who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth really so strange? Che, every time it's like you're collecting junk, you even put in trash jades, making it look like you've picked up a lot of good jades. Really, mud can't support a wall. You're a disgrace to our clear cloud pavilion, Mang Jueguang saw through Su Lingchong's confusion and promptly explained. So that was it. Only then did Su Lingchong's expression soften a little. With a disdainful smile, he turned to Kong Xiaoming. I say, Kong Shitty, are all the people in the common world this poor? You won't even let go of a few worthless pieces of jade like this? Master Su, although we people in the common world haven't seen much of the world, we're not all trash pickers. But Lin Yi and I are different, although we're from the common world. We're from the top sections. I'm from the 5 element sect, and this brother Zhong is from the everyday and everyday sect, while that Lin Yi is a complete freelancer. We all despise people like him who relied on scavenging to get to the heavenly stage island. Kong Xiaoming laughed. His words belittled Lin Yi to the point that he was worthless. Lin Yi was despised on Sky Class Island, and he was despised even when he returned to the common world. That was simply detestable. Oh, so you're from the 5 element sect? That's a big sect. Our pale god Zhang Liju from Sky Class North Island is a master from your common world's 5 element sect. I've heard of the everyday and everyday sect. It used to be a sect from Middle Island. You're all descendants of famous sects. No wonder you've joined our soaring sky pavilion. It's just right. Su Lingchong understood after hearing that. He was a prideful person. Obviously, he respected Zhang Liju from the 5 element sect. But after hearing about Lin Yi, he couldn't help but laugh. That's true. If you guys were like this guy, I wouldn't have liked you guys back then. This kind of trash that only knows how to pick up trash should be left to Blue Cloud Pavilion. Su Lingchong's words were said in front of everyone. When the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies heard this, their faces immediately changed. Didn't Su Lingchong's words mean that they were also trash? Although the Clear Cloud Pavilion was the weakest among the 3 pavilions, and it was true that it had the reputation of being a waste shelter, Saying such words in front of so many clear Cloud Pavilion new disciples was no different than pointing at a monk and scolding a bald donkey. Isn't this young master, Su, going a little too far in bullying others? However, Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother who could represent the Blue Cloud Pavilion the most, turned a deaf ear to Su Lingqiong's words. He still tried to curry favor with Su Lingqiong with a fawning expression. Instantly, the rookies felt a chill in their hearts. It was true that they were grassroots, rogue cultivators. The Blue Cloud Pavilion was in a disadvantageous position. They could accept it, but it did not mean that they were willing to suffer such unbridled insults in front of their faces. And because of yesterday's unforeseen event, although they had gathered here today to watch Lin Yi make a fool of himself, they were mostly in a wait-and-see state. They were not on the same side as Meng Jueguang and company. And now, after being provoked by Su Lingqiong, especially after seeing Meng Jueguang's face, at this moment he felt like he was on the same side as Lin Yi. The moment the rookie's mentality changed, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Originally, this circle of people gathered here to watch Lin Yi make a fool of himself. But at this moment, it felt like they were cheering for Lin Yi. Not only did they not wish for Lin Yi to make a fool of himself, they hoped that he would show a bunch of good jade like yesterday, blinding the dog eyes of Su Lingqiong and Meng Jueguang. He looks like this bunch of people aren't hopeless. Lin Yi smiled thoughtfully. He originally thought that this bunch of rookies had been reduced to the same lackeys as Meng Jueguang. But from the looks of it, there was still a last bit of ambition that had not been ground down. Not only Lin Yi, Meng Jueguang also quickly noticed the subtlety of the situation. Seeing the rookies vaguely turning the spearhead towards him, he could not help but complain in his heart. He was someone who wholeheartedly wanted to curry favor with someone of a higher position. To have the opportunity to interact with a young master like Su Lingqiong was a blessing that he had cultivated for 8 lifetimes. He could not give up such a great opportunity just because of a sentence from the other party. But then again, if he wanted to improve in the future, he had to maintain his current position. And to maintain his position as the eldest senior brother, he had to subdue this bunch of rookies. Yesterday was a great opportunity, but it was destroyed by Lin Yi's miraculous dog-shit luck. And today was another opportunity, but he never expected to encounter such an awkward dilemma. If he did not refute Su Lingqiong's ridicule, then he, Meng Jueguang, would definitely lose points in front of the rookies. It was a matter of dignity and integrity. This was extremely fatal. Once this image was fixed, it would be even more difficult to subdue them in the future. But if he refuted Su Lingqiong, it would go along with the wishes of the rookies. But the outcome would be even worse. Young Master Su could casually greet Hu Yunfeng, and he, Meng Jueguang, would never be able to make a comeback. Either he offended the rookies, or he offended Su Lingqiong. Suddenly being forced into such a dilemma, Meng Jueguang even had the thought of hacking Lin Yi to death in front of everyone. If it was not because he wanted to see this unlucky guy make a fool of himself, why would he be in such an awkward situation? Now, before he could make a fool of himself, he had become the unlucky guy who was unjustly implicated. However, at this time, Su Lingqiong seemed to have noticed Meng Jueguang's awkwardness. It was true that he did not like Blue Cloud Pavilion, but he was an ambitious and intelligent person. Don't be fooled by his usual arrogance, but he was still very meticulous in his thinking. Since Meng Jueguang intended to rely on him, he would naturally accept it. It would be good if the people of Blue Cloud Pavilion became his underlings. But in order to make his underlings loyal to him, he still had to give them face. So he said faintly, when I said Blue Cloud Pavilion was trash, I was referring to Lin Yi, Xiaoran, and Xiao Hongkai. Because they followed people with no future, they were destined to be trash. But if they followed me and junior brother Meng Jueguang, then it's different. Even if you are trash, there will be a time for you to counterattack. Because in the Heaven North Island, if you want to stand out, what do you rely on? You rely on your backing. You are all Heaven stage experts. Your qualifications are not bad, and the starting line is the same. What you are competing for is cultivation resources. Following the right person is very important. Otherwise, you can only rely on dog sh*t luck in the future. Su Lingchong's words immediately made the blood of the Blue Cloud Pavilion disciples boil. That's right, in the Heaven North Island, what was the competition? Wasn't it because of whose backing was stronger? Chapter 36:05. Moreover, what was the use of being lucky? Wasn't he still being troubled by Meng Jueguang and the others all day long? If he didn't have good luck, could he be protected by the hardship? Obviously not. As for those who had disloyal thoughts, previously they had also calmed down at this moment. They all recognized the situation clearly. They didn't have Lin Yi's luck. Wouldn't following the hardship be even more miserable than being a hardship? Moreover, Su Lingchong's words were already very clear. He would be Meng Jueguang's backer. Then, what was there to be afraid of? This was a top-notch backer. Meng Jueguang looked at Su Lingchong gratefully. Suddenly, he had the feeling of a soldier dying for a bosom friend. Su Lingchong said that he would protect him. Wouldn't he be more popular in the future? Just thinking about it made him incomparably happy. Following this kind of boss was really awesome. Lin Yi, on the other hand, looked at Su Lingchong thoughtfully. This young master, Su wasn't an idiot, although he looked arrogant and despotic, as if he was the world's number one. In fact, his wisdom wasn't weak at all. However, Lin Yi didn't take it to heart. Anyway, these people were his enemies. It was impossible for him to reconcile with them. Let them do whatever they wanted. Therefore, he followed the handover process unhurriedly. After passing the scale, he packed up the spiritual jades and went to the quality inspection department to queue. He didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. Lin Yi had the patience to wait, but Su Lingchong, who was anxious to see him make a fool of himself, didn't have the patience. After greeting the people, he directly asked Kong Mingming to cut Lin Yi's basket into the quality inspection department. After all, with Su Lingchong's deep background, the others turned a blind eye to it. They dared to be angry, but didn't dare to say anything. Very soon, the quality inspection results came out. It was still the voice of the mysterious pavilion's Senior Tong from yesterday. Lin Yi, 10 good jades, 7 useless jades, 19 trash jades. 10 jades. How is this possible? Meng Tong was so shocked that he almost bit his tongue off. He had only managed to dig up 8 pieces of good jade today, and this was the 7th mining area. But look at Lin Yi from the 10th dead mining area. Not only did he dig up 8 pieces of good jade on the first day yesterday, but today he actually increased it to 10 pieces. It wasn't only Meng Tong. Even Su Lingchong, Meng Jueguang, and the others had expressions as wonderful as if they'd eaten shit at this moment. All of their faces were flushed red, and they looked as if they wanted to vomit but couldn't. Not only did he eat sh*t, but he was also stuffed to death by sh*t. Yesterday, Lin Yi was lucky enough to dig up 8 pieces of good jade. But what about today's 10 pieces? Could it be that this guy was really the son of luck? How could he be so lucky for 2 days in a row? I can't help it. Who asked me to have a good character? When luck comes, it can't be stopped. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly at this group of people. It was simply infuriating. F***ck. Only a few pieces of good jade could be found in the 10th mining area in a year. How could this guy dig up so many good jade in 2 days in a row? I don't King believe this. Su Lingchong was seething with anger at Lin Yi's expression. Flustered and exasperated, he pointed at the quality inspection area and said angrily, "Old man Tong, come out. Take out this pile of useless jade and re-inspect it in front of me." in front of a small steward like Mang Jueguang from the welcoming pavilion. This senior brother Tong from the profound pavilion could still put on airs. But in front of the soaring sky pavilion's young master, Su Lingchong, it was impossible. Although the profound pavilion had never been on good terms with the soaring sky pavilion, young Master Su was not someone a small fry like him could afford to provoke. When senior brother Tong heard this, he hurriedly responded and put the spirit jades that Lin Yi had dug up back into the basket. Then he carried them out personally and re-inspected them in front of everyone. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. When senior brother Tong finally picked out 10 pieces of good jade and placed them in front of everyone, everyone was dumbfounded once again. Su Lingchong did not believe it and picked them up one by one to feel them. His originally hazy face completely collapsed. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was pure and full. The richness of the jade was even greater than the spiritual jades he usually used for cultivation. No matter how picky a person was, they would never say that these spiritual jades were worthless. On the contrary, even among the good jades, these spiritual jades were rare and of high quality. How is it, senior brother Su? I picked up these trash spirit jades from the trash. I don't think I would be able to catch the eye of a big shot like you, would I? Lin Yi crossed his arms and smiled calmly at the side. Su Lingchong's complexion was ashen, but he was choked to the point that he could not speak for a long time. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he could not possibly lie. If he really braced himself and said that these spirit jades were all useless jade, then where was the spirit jade hall? Even if he, this young master, had a strong backing in front of such an obvious matter, these people from the spirit jade hall would not dare to follow him and speak nonsense. Originally, young Master Su's mood was pretty good today, especially after he scared away Lu Bianren, who wanted to change the mining area for Lin Yi. It gave him a pleasant feeling that everything was under his control. Although he could not personally take action to teach Lin Yi a lesson for the time being, to be able to crush the other party to death in the 10th dead mining area was also a delightful matter. In the end, he did not expect that he would encounter such a thing in the blink of an eye. He had obviously been crushed to death in the 10th dead mining area. If it was someone else, they would not be able to make a fuss. But in the end, this Lin Yi had dug out so many good jades in the dead mining area. And this was not the first day. This was already the 2nd day in a row. Su Lingchong's current mood was as if he was filled with joy and mentally prepared to eat the Manchu Han imperial feast. In the end, when the dishes were served, when the lid was lifted, it was pig swill that had gone bad for half a month, and there was even a swarm of green-headed flies buzzing around it. Not to mention this, the problem was that he actually had to pinch his nose and drink this pot of swill. Su Lingchong's face turned green. Kong Mingming's face also turned green. One must know that compared to Su Lingchong, he was the real archenemy of Lin Yi with a deep hatred. If one were to say who wanted Lin Yi to be unlucky the most, he would absolutely be ranked first. However, the more urgent this feeling was, the more swill he drank at this time. That kind of feeling could only be described with 4 words: wanting to cry, but having no tears. And to say that among Su Lingchong's group at this time, the only one who was in a good mood was Zhong Pingliang. If it wasn't for his identity as a spy, this guy might even be unable to restrain himself from cheering loudly. Boss Lin Yi was Boss Lin Yi after all. It looked like he couldn't move at all, but he'd given everyone a huge gift without a sound. That was a slap to the face. It felt so good. Chapter 3606. As Lin Yi spoke, he turned around and left, leaving Su Lingchong and the others to look at each other in dismay. Their faces were all uglier than the other. He even invited people to come and watch. He didn't mind losing face. This bastard was 2F** king infuriating. It was truly intolerable. Even if they could tolerate it, they couldn't tolerate it. To prevent himself from making a fool of himself, Mang Jueguang waved his hand. indicating for the other newcomers to disperse. Then he carefully looked at Su Lingcheng, who had an ugly expression on his face. Meng Jueguang, as the newcomer manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion, are you just going to watch him be so arrogant? If you don't have the ability, then don't waste your food in this position. I believe that there are people who are willing to stand up and deal with Lin Yi. Su Lingcheng looked angrily at Meng Jueguang. Originally, when he heard that Meng Jueguang had kicked Lin Yi to the 10th dead mining area, he thought that he was a talent. But from the looks of it, he was clearly a useless idiot. Seeing that Su Lingcheng had turned the spearhead to him in anger, Meng Jueguang instantly threw all his worries to the back of his mind. He was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. He was only a low-level manager. How could he withstand young Master Su's anger? Furthermore, Meng Jueguang had just been accepted by Su Lingcheng. If he didn't handle it well, then it would be strange if Su Lingcheng would bother with him in the future. Luckily, Meng Jueguang still had the quick-wittedness of a small fry. He rolled his eyes and said, "Young Master Su, don't be anxious. For this Lin Yi to be able to dig out so much good jade in the dead mining area for 2 consecutive days, I think there must be something fishy about it. It's very possible that he found a high-quality ore spot." Su Lingcheng nodded thoughtfully. This analysis made sense. Even if it was the dead mining area number 10, it was only a man-made area. In essence, it was still connected to other high-quality mining areas. Although the jade production rate was very low in the past, it did not mean that there was no good jade. If Lin Yi really found a high-quality mining area by luck, it would not be surprising at all if he dug out good jade in the dead mining area for a few days. Seeing Su Lingcheng's approval, Meng Jueguang's spirit was lifted, and he continued to suggest, "So, I think we can transfer him to another mining area for a few days. After we figure out the details of the jade produced in the number 10 mining area, it won't be too late to deal with him. What do you think, young Master Su?" "This is not impossible." Su Lingcheng pinched his chin and said, although Su Lingcheng wholeheartedly wanted to deal with Lin Yi, due to his identity, he could not directly make a move on Lin Yi. Moreover, with his level, even if he wanted to deal with Lin Yi, the method could not be too simple and crude. Otherwise, even if he ended up trapping Lin Yi in the end, he would become the laughingstock of the other young masters and ladies when the news spread. So, since he wanted to deal with Lin Yi, he had to make it so that no one could find fault with it. Although this suggestion of Meng Jueguang would take some time, Su Lingcheng still had the patience to wait for a few days. But he, Su Lingcheng, still had the patience to wait for a few days. "Fine, I'll leave this matter to you. If you do well, I'll ask Hu Yunfeng to reward you. But if you mess it up, you'll have to deal with it yourself." Su Lingcheng glanced at Meng Jueguang and said, before he could think of a better idea, letting a new manager like Meng Jueguang deal with Lin Yi wasn't a bad move. Meng Jueguang hurriedly patted his chest and guaranteed, "Young Master Su, don't worry. I promise I won't let that brat Lin Yi have it easy. Since that brat is blind enough to provoke our young Master Su, I don't dare to say anything else, but it's more than enough to take care of a lowly person from the secular world. Just wait to suffer in the future." Good. The haze on Su Lingcheng's face finally dissipated. He paused for a while and said, "Oh, right. Earlier today, that Lu Bianren from your welcome pavilion wanted to change the mining area for Lin Yi. I met him and taught him a lesson. Just now, I saw that those useless newcomers from Blue Cloud Pavilion were not too convinced by you. If you change the mining area for Lin Yi, you can use this matter to make a fuss." Hearing this, Meng Jueguang's eyes immediately lit up. He hurriedly thanked Su Lingcheng and said, "Thank you, young Master Su, for your guidance." Young Master Su is indeed as observant and wise as the rumors say. The leading figure of the new generation of the 3 great pavilions is indeed worthy of his reputation. "Ha! What leading figure of the new generation? You sure know how to talk." Hearing this, Su Lingchong couldn't help but be in a good mood. Although he had a strong background and was a famous young master in the 3 great pavilions, it was too much to say that he was a leading figure of the new generation. Although there were very few youngsters who had a stronger background and were stronger than him, there were still some. However, Meng Jueguang's flattery was not wrong. This young master, Su really liked to hear this. Meng Jueguang let out a sigh of relief as he watched Su Lingchong lead Kong Xiaoming and Kong Xiaoming away. Even in his dreams, he wanted to curry favor with Master Su Lingchong. But when he was face to face with him, the pressure was as heavy as a mountain. Luckily, he was quick-witted enough to flatter Su Lingchong. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to fool Master Su. 9th cousin brother, what did young Master Su mean just now? What is he trying to do? After Su Lingchong and the others walked far away, Meng Tong turned his head and asked Meng Jueguang in confusion. In front of a young master like Su Lingchong, even Meng Jueguang was scared witless. As a new disciple who was at the lower level, he didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. Meng Jueguang looked at him, then looked at Li Zhengming, who also had a blank expression. He couldn't help but hold his forehead speechlessly and said, "Rotten wood can't be carved. Are your brains filled with paste? You can't even understand such an obvious thing. You're really stupid." After a pause, seeing that the two still didn't understand, Meng Jueguang had to patiently explain. Young Master Su just said that Lu Bianren, the 3rd pavilion head, wanted to change the mining area for Lin Yi, but he didn't because of young Master Su. If I change Lin Yi to the 7th mining area, what do you think the others will do? Meng Tong finally reacted and clapped his hands excitedly. What's more, even the 3rd pavilion head of the Welcome Pavilion couldn't do it, but our 9th cousin brother did it. Isn't this a big deal? Li Zhengming also rushed to say, not only that Lin Yi provoked eldest senior brother again and again, but eldest senior brother could still let go of the past and change the mining area for him to the 7th mining area. This is simply returning good for evil. Chapter 36:07. Meng Tong and Li Zhengming finally understood. It turned out that Meng Jueguang's final goal was to take the opportunity to establish his prestige in front of this group of Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, as expected of the experienced eldest senior brother steward. This was the true farsightedness of the people. Then, 9th cousin brother, what should we do next? Go directly to Dai Wu Chang to exchange the mining area for Lin Yi? Meng Tong scratched his head and asked, No, go to Lin Yi. Meng Jueguang shook his head and said, Exchanging mining areas can be a big or small matter. With young Master Su at the top, there won't be any problems with Spirit Jade Hall. But if Lin Yi himself doesn't agree and refuses to sign the contract, no matter what, it will be useless. Exchanging him to the 7th mining area, and he still won't agree? Lin, you won't be so stupid, right? Meng Tong had a surprised look on his face. For any normal person, to be able to change from the 10th to the 7th dead mining area was simply a blessing that could not be cultivated for several lifetimes. How could there be any reason to refuse? As a result, Meng Jueguang looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. Not so stupid? If he really agreed easily, then he would be stupid. If it was you, you can dig 8 or 10 pieces of good jade in the 10th mining area every day. If someone wants to exchange you to the 7th mining area, you can only dig 6 or 7 pieces of good jade a day. Will you do it? Meng Tong was suddenly speechless. It seemed that wanting Lin Yi to agree to exchanging mining areas was really not an easy thing. So he said weakly, If he refuses, what should we do? Of course, we will lure him. I will tell you in detail at that time. Meng Jueguang glanced at Li Zhengming and said, Although Li Zhengming was the first newcomer besides Meng Tong to approach Meng Jueguang, his degree of trust was far less than that of Meng Tong. Firstly, Li Zhengming was not like Meng Tong, who had a natural and reliable relationship with Meng Jueguang. Secondly, Li Jingming was a bit scheming. Although Meng Tong, this brainless idiot, usually did things unreliable from the perspective of Meng Jueguang, he preferred this kind of simple-minded idiot because this kind of person would not have ideas that should not have. If it was Li Jingming, it was not certain. On the other side, after Lin Yi returned to the cave residence, he unexpectedly saw two people at the stone table in front of the newcomer's cave residence. One was Senior Brother Bitter. As for the other, although he did not look middle-aged, his temperament revealed a profound understanding of the vicissitudes of the world. It could be seen that his age and experience should not be shallow, but he had never seen them in the welcome pavilion, sitting upright on the stone chair. That person was like an old monk in meditation, but Senior Brother Bitter had to stand up from time to time to look around. Looking at this posture, it seemed that the two of them had been waiting for a long time. Seeing Lin Yi's figure, Senior Brother Bitter hurriedly stood up and waved from afar. "Junior Brother Lin, over here!" "Senior Brother Bitter, are you looking for me?" Lin Yi responded and walked forward with a surprised expression. At the same time, he secretly sized up the person sitting upright on the stone chair. "That's right. Come, Junior Brother Lin, let me introduce you. This is our Welcome Pavilion's Pavilion Master Lu. He is also a senior brother from our Blue Cloud Pavilion." Senior Brother Bitter hurriedly introduced to Lin Yi. "This is the legendary third Pavilion Master." Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He cupped his hands and greeted, "Greetings, Pavilion Master Lu." "Don't call me Pavilion Master. Just call me Senior Brother." Lu Bianren waved his hand dismissively as he looked at Lin Yi from head to toe. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his face as he said, just as Junior Brother Ku said, "Junior Brother Lin is not someone to be trifled with. To be able to recruit a new disciple like Junior Brother Lin, it is our Clear Cloud Pavilion's fortune. You flatter me, Senior Brother Lu." Lin Yi hurriedly waved his hand. Although he had absolute confidence in himself, he still felt a little embarrassed to be praised like this. After all, no matter how powerful he was in the secular world, he was still a newcomer here. There were many people who were stronger than him. I'm not just saying this to get close to you. Junior Brother Lin, you should have heard of my current situation in the Welcome Pavilion. I have nothing to do all day, so I can only look through ancient scriptures to comfort myself. However, I have learned a little about the art of observing people. Whether it is appearance or temperament, Junior Brother Lin, you are not an ordinary person." Lu Bianren laughed. Hearing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but look up to this depressed third Pavilion Master. It wasn't because of the praise, but because he admired his calmness and open-mindedness in the face of this awkward situation. If it was someone else in Lu Bianren's position, they would more or less have to maintain their high and mighty Pavilion Master image in front of a newcomer like Lin Yi. At the very least, they would try to cover it up. However, Lu Bianren was not only able to face it calmly, but even had the ability to laugh at himself. After exchanging a few pleasantries, they got down to business. The reason why the two of them were waiting for Lin Yi was actually Lu Bianren's idea. Firstly, he wanted to see this amazing newcomer from the mortal world that his bitter senior brother spoke of. Secondly, they felt that it was necessary to find an opportunity to appease Lin Yi because they didn't have a good start today. Otherwise, if Lin Yi really gave up on himself because he was wasted in mine number 10 for 3 months, then it would truly be a pity. After listening to Senior Brother Ku narrate the situation of the two of them encountering Su Lingchong during the day, besides being surprised, Lin Yi was also rather moved in his heart. In order to find a way to change the mind for him, this bitter Senior Brother Ku could be said to be a sincere and honest person. Lu Bianren, the third Pavilion Master, was also very kind. With his current situation, leaving the Repent Cliff to run around for him was not a small risk. If Great Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng were to find out about this, he would be charged with negligence of duty. To Lu Bianren, This was tantamount to adding snow to snow. Junior brother Lin, although Su Lingcheng's threat may not come true, for the sake of our blue cloud pavilion, I can't take this risk for you alone. As a senior brother, I am very ashamed, but I still hope that you can understand. Lu Bianren explained sincerely. Senior brother Ku Bai also had an ashamed expression on his face, deeply hating that he was powerless. Senior brother Lu, you're exaggerating. Going to mine number 10 is my own choice. If you bring disaster to Blue Cloud Pavilion just to change the mine for me, then I will really feel uneasy. Lin hurriedly waved his hand. Chapter 3608. Thank you, senior brothers, for your kindness. I can't thank you enough, but... Lin thought for a while and decided to tell them what had happened in the past few days. They would find out sooner or later anyway, so they wouldn't worry about him anymore. Senior brothers, you probably don't know this, but even though I was assigned to the number 10 dead mine, I still dug up a lot of good jade these 2 days. In the long run, it shouldn't be a problem to dig up 8 to 10 pieces a day, so it's not a waste of time. What? You dug up 8 to 10 pieces a day? Lu Bianren and senior brother Ku Bai were shocked and looked at each other in disbelief. Both of them had explored the number 10 mine before, so they knew exactly what it was like inside. Good jade was an extravagant dream, and it would be lucky if they could dig up 10 to 20 pieces of waste jade a day. Therefore, in order to avoid provoking Lin senior brother Ku Bai didn't even dare to ask him about the situation for the past 2 days. He was afraid that he wouldn't dig up a piece of good jade in 2 days, which would cause both of them to feel awkward. Although I'm also very surprised, maybe the mine that senior brother Ku Bai found for me is a rare high-quality mine that can produce a lot of good jade, so you two don't have to worry about me anymore. Lin said with a smile. Of course, he wouldn't tell them his trump card. Saying that it was a high-quality mine was enough reason. Presumably, Meng Jueguang and the others also thought so. Really? Although there are a lot of waste jade in that mine that looks good, I haven't seen many pieces of good jade. Senior brother Ku Bai was confused. The mine that he found for Lin was indeed a rare high-yield mine in the number 10 dead mine, but it was too exaggerated that it could produce 8 to 10 pieces of good jade a day. He had helped Lin dig up a few pieces before, but he had never encountered such a good thing. Maybe senior brother Ku Bai didn't dig deep enough, and now I've gotten a bargain. Lin had to lie. That's possible. Maybe this mine of yours is hidden quite deep, and it's connected to the other high-quality mines. Lu Bianren nodded and immediately let out a sigh of relief. In any case, if you can keep digging out good jade, then these 3 months won't be a waste. This is great news. The bitter senior marshal brother also said, excitedly, if you can dig out 8 or 10 pieces a day, then junior marshal brother Lin, you should be able to earn 7 or 8 pieces of spiritual jades in 3 months. It will be very beneficial for your future cultivation. 7 or 8 pieces of spiritual jades. My goal is $140. Based on 2 yuan a day, it would be at least 140 yuan in 3 months. Lin snickered in his heart, but he still nodded repeatedly on the surface. In fact, for a newcomer, 7 or 8 pieces of spirit jades was not a small amount. Since junior brother Lin is doing well, then we can rest assured. If there's anything you need in the future, feel free to ask junior brother Ku. You can also find me at the Repent Cliff. It was getting late. We'll take our leave first. Lu Bianren said and left with the bitter senior marshal brother. After sending the 2 off, Lin was about to turn around and return to his cave abode when he saw 2 people walking towards him from afar. They even waved at him. It was Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. Lin couldn't help but be amused. What day was it today? Why did everyone come to look for him? Although he didn't like the 2 of them, Meng Jueguang was still the eldest senior marshal brother in charge. Lin couldn't ignore them, so he stopped and waited for the 2 of them. Senior Marshal Brother Meng, what instructions do you have for me? As they approached, Meng Jueguang asked Meng Tong to chase the newcomers who stuck their heads out to look back into the cave abode. He led Lin Yi to a secluded corner and said, Junior brother Lin Yi, there's a misunderstanding between us, and that's why I lost my temper earlier. That's why I assigned you to the number 10 dead mining area. I admit that I've been unkind in this matter, but now I understand that there isn't any deep hatred between us. You're a newcomer to Blue Cloud Pavilion, and I'm a senior steward of Blue Cloud Pavilion. There's no reason for us to make our relationship so tense, am I right? What kind of thinking was that? Was Meng Jueguang insane? Was this a sign of reconciliation? However, Lin Yi did not believe that he would be so kind. So when he heard this, Lin Yi nodded non-committally, but in his heart he was thinking, what kind of play is this eldest senior martial brother playing? With Meng Jueguang's usual tough and overbearing style of handling things, there was no reason for him to take the initiative to say these things. Lin Yi did not think that this guy would sincerely want to reconcile with him, unless the sun rose from the west. There must be something fishy about this matter. Seeing Lin Yi's expression, Meng Jueguang laughed and said, I know that Junior Marshal Brother Lin Yi doesn't believe me, but it's okay. To judge whether my words are sincere, you can just watch my next action. To express my apology and sincerity, I've decided to change you to the number 7 mine. What do you think? Change me to the number 7 mine? Lin Yi suddenly understood. It turned out that this was the main point. How was this guy here to reconcile? It was obvious that he saw that Lin Yi had dug out 8 or 10 pieces of good jade in 2 days, so he couldn't sit still. That's right, Junior Marshal Brother Lin Yi. You've also stayed in the number 10 mine for 2 days. You should be clear about the situation inside. Don't think that you're lucky and dug out a few pieces of good jade in the past 2 days. In the long run, you can't have such good luck every day, right? In terms of jade yield, although the number 7 mine is not a good mine, it's much better than the number 10 mine. Meng Jueguang persuaded earnestly. Maybe my luck is always this good. Lin raised his eyebrows and looked at him. He smiled faintly and asked, You've heard, right? They all said that I was lucky to rush to the Heavenly Island from a rogue cultivator. A moment of luck is understandable. But have you ever seen anyone who is lucky all the time? After so many years, I guess your luck is almost used up. Meng Jueguang's face immediately turned cold. He curled his lips and said, You know Pavilion Master Lu and Junior Marshal Brother Ku, right? In the past, both of them were extremely lucky, receiving the favor of one of our Clear Cloud Pavilion's Vice Pavilion Lords. Not only were they given a lot of good cultivation resources, they were even promoted. But now, their backer, this Deputy Pavilion Master, went to carry out a mission. His life or death is unknown. There's no news about him. So, their luck has come to an end. That's why people can't believe in luck too much. By the way, speaking of these 2 people, I saw Pavilion Master Lu and Junior Marshal Brother Ku when I came here. You should know that these 2 people wanted to find Dai Wu Chang to help you change the mine during the day. In the end, they didn't because of young Master Su, right? Chapter 3609. Meng Jueguang sneered. Then you should understand your current situation, right? Exchanging mining areas can be a big or small matter. It's not something that can be done by just anyone. It requires a strong network. To tell you the truth, I, Meng Jueguang, can definitely do what those 2 people can't do. This is the only chance. If you miss this chance, you won't get it again. Lin, he couldn't help but laugh. It was obvious that this guy couldn't wait to move him out, but he still put on a posture of doing him a favor. Sure enough, a cheap person had a cheap trick. He immediately shook his head and said, Although the 7th mining area is better, I can not only dig up good jade in the 10th mining area, but there are also fewer people there. I like this kind of secluded place, so I appreciate big senior brother's kindness, but I can't do it. He had now figured out the trick of stealing spiritual jades in the 10th mining area. If it was changed to the 7th mining area, which was more closely monitored, although it was easier to dig up spiritual jades, at least he would have to explore the environment again. It was still uncertain whether he could continue to steal spiritual jades as smoothly as he did now. This kind of stupid thing like losing a watermelon and picking up a sesame seed was not something that Linny would do. Moreover, there were more good jades in the 7th mining area and less useless jades, so it would be even more difficult to operate. It seems that junior brother Lin still doesn't believe me. Mang Jueguang shook his head, pretending to be sad. In fact, he had already expected that Lin Yi would not agree. In fact, even if he was in Lin Yi's position, he would not agree so easily, unless he saw enough benefits. After saying this, Lin Yi thought that the other party would give up. Unexpectedly, not only did Mang Jueguang not leave in a huff, but he also gave Meng Tong, who was guarding at the side, a look. Meng Tong understood and came over with a black bag. From the beginning, Lin Yi had already noticed this bag, but he didn't know what it was for. He didn't expect that the things in the bag were actually prepared for him. It doesn't matter if you don't believe me, but after seeing these things in the bag, I think, junior brother Lin, you won't doubt my sincerity anymore. Mang Jueguang laughed and took the bag from Meng Tong's hand. He deliberately opened the bag and waved it in front of Lin Yi's eyes. Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. Although the sky was already dark, he could clearly see the contents of the bag with the help of the moonlight. It was pure white and filled to the brim with spiritual jades. Roughly estimating, there were at least 15 pieces of spirit jades in the bag. What is the meaning of this, eldest senior brother? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes and looked at Meng Jueguang playfully. If it was just to get him to agree to the change of mind, but to use so many spiritual jades without hesitation, this was a little too extravagant. If Lin Yi had given Mang Jueguang a gift in order to be transferred from the 10th to the 7th mining area, although he wouldn't have given so many spiritual jades, it was still logical. However, the current situation was exactly the opposite. Not only did Mang Jueguang take the initiative to ask for Lin Yi to change to the 7th mining area, but he was also willing to spend so much money. Moreover, he didn't even hesitate to put out such a large sum of money. This matter just didn't make sense. There are 16 pieces of spiritual jades in this bag. As long as you agree to the change of mind, these are all yours. What do you think? Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with sincerity and expectation. In fact, if it wasn't Lin Yi but any other newcomer, they would definitely be tempted by so many spiritual jades. In the face of so many spirit jades, one would definitely be tempted. In fact, it would be normal for one to lose their composure on the spot. As the saying goes, money moves people's hearts. In the secular world, ordinary people would sell everything for money. But for cultivators like them, the temptation of spiritual jades was even greater. Moreover, in the eyes of ordinary people, changing from the 10th mining area to the 7th mining area was a good thing. Under such circumstances, if Lin Yi still didn't agree, then there must be something wrong with his brain. However, what made Mang Jueguang and Meng Tong disappointed was that Lin Yi didn't have any obvious reaction after seeing so many spiritual jades. He didn't even look at them for a second. There was no sign of reluctance. Could it be that this guy saw something fishy about the spiritual jades? Mang Jueguang's heart skipped a beat as he tried to tempt Lin Yi. Junior brother Lin, think about it. Even if you could dig 10 pieces of jade a day in the 10th mine, you'd only be able to earn 3 pieces of spirit jade a month at most. 16 pieces of spirit jade would be equivalent to half a year's worth of your mining income. For newcomers like you, the half a year saved is very precious. I don't think I need to be long-winded, right? 9th cousin brother, since he doesn't even want the spiritual jades that are delivered to him, why don't you give me all these spiritual jades? Why don't you give me all these spirit jades and transfer me to the 10th mine as well? I'll do nothing and keep an eye on him every day. I want to see how this guy excavates such good jades. Meng Tong chimed in from the side. Meng Jueguang had already taught him this set of words before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the brains to do it alone. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Putting everything else aside, Meng Tong's words had hit his Achilles heel. If this guy really did what he said and came to the 10th mine to keep an eye on him, then things would be troublesome. Meng Tong checked the spiritual jades one by one. How did Lin Yi do it? Lin Yi's heart raced, but he could only pretend to be moved. Then he said hesitantly, 16 spiritual jades is a big deal. Senior brother, you're not just doing this for me, right? I don't think there's such a good thing. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Lin Yi's reaction was the most normal reaction of a calm and rational person. If Lin Yi couldn't wait to agree, then it would be abnormal. Hee, junior brother Lin Yi is indeed the best among the newcomers. You're really cautious. Meng Jueguang laughed and said, you're right. I'm giving you these 16 spiritual jades for another thing besides making you agree to the mining area. But don't worry, it's just a small matter. I won't make things difficult for you. What is it? Lin Yi asked. I remember that when I gave you the spiritual jades a few days ago, you got the smallest piece. It should be the size of an egg. I wonder if Junior Lin Yi has used it these days? Meng Jueguang stared at Lin Yi and said, not yet. Why? Lin Yi couldn't help but be moved. How did this guy get his eyes on this spiritual jade? Was there something special about it? You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.